Good evening, everyone. Welcome to American Advocates on Friday, episode 63, happening right now, where, of course, I'll be giving some updates about the Iran war once again, especially heading into this weekend. Lots to discuss when it comes to that, as well as, of course, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens have officially made statements and responded to President Donald Trump, what I covered yesterday in his obnoxious Truth Social post. Alex Jones has also been popping off as well. So I'm going to cover all of that, this MAGA fracture and divide that's currently taking place and occurring right now because of this Iran war. Benny Johnson actually wound up throwing in his hat as well. And so altogether, it is just apparently this giant disaster. And you can see the effects that it's having on MAGA right now on social media. Many of the delusional MAGA cheerleaders have been very, very insistent that MAGA is more unified than ever and that everyone's on the same page. And Trump has 100% support, but the cracks are beginning to show, and even the most delusional MAGA cheerleaders now on social media are beginning to acknowledge and accept the fact that there is a massive divide happening. They're referring to it as the podcast wars, but in all honesty, it's above and beyond podcasters now. It's much more than just podcast wars. And so they've made their statements. They've essentially called out Trump for what they believe that he is, and we're going to cover all of that. But what I wanted to do first tonight, actually, is respond to a super chat that I received on last night's stream, where my one viewer, Beck fan, wound up comparing President Donald Trump to what he called King Lear. And when I read the super chat, I kept thinking, oh, I've heard Lear before. Where have I heard Lear before? Where have I heard that word? And then I realized, oh, I've heard the word actually in the Leering Center from Minnesota with Somalians and how they've been defrauding the daycares and whatnot in that state. But then I Googled it because I was like, that's not what he was talking about, obviously. So King Lear is a Shakespearean character. Hey, Lifeguard, welcome, man. He says, are we live? Yeah, you can see me, right? You can hear me? Of course we're live. We're live, Lifeguard. By the way, Lifeguard, wanted to thank you for your super chat last night. Obviously, things were going crazy last night. I missed your super chat, as well as Howard Clegg's super chat, so I appreciate those. The chat was just really, really crazy though. So, yeah, I just couldn't even keep up. Honestly, this is I'm gonna do this for you as well. There we go. Lifeguard, I hereby dub thee as the second moderator of the channel. Just please continue to show up so you can help moderate the chat. But I wound up rewatching last night's live stream, and the chat was popping off, and Glenn was drowning in swinery. He could have used some help. So you're going to be a standard moderator. I just need you to understand, free speech absolutist here, okay? So only ban people if they spam the same shit like 3 times in a row or more, and then you warn them and they keep doing it. Just ban them then at that point. Deport their ass. But all personal attacks on me are fair game. Leave Eddie be. Yes, I know you will. I knew you were just kidding about that. But all personal attacks are fair game. I don't care. The more chats that come in, the better for me. So the less bans you hand out, the better, in all honesty. And Glenn was even starting to get a little. I was looking back on some of the chats. I was like, all right, I think Glenn got a little power hungry last night. So the less bans, the better. But yeah, Lifeguard, you're now hereby dubbed as the second moderator on this channel. So anyways, back on point. Before I get into the news, Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens responding to Trump today, and then how I'm going to, of course, move on to Iran, the Iran war, the updates. Israel is losing global popularity. Tons of countries are beginning to turn on Israel, including our latest update today that I'll be covering. Spain throwing in their hat when it comes to condemning Israel's actions in both Gaza and Lebanon, and what this means from a global implication standpoint. Going to cover all of that. But I wanted to address the one super chat last night from, like I said, from Beck fan, comparing Trump to King Lear, and how I had to Google this to understand what he was saying, because the term Lear I've only heard in the word Leering Center from the Minnesota daycares that have been defrauded by Somalians. But King Lear, it turns out, and this is actually a very appropriate comparison, which is why I want to go over it real fast, to set the tone for tonight's episode when it comes to Trump, the podcast wars they're being called, the MAGA divide and fracture. This was a very, very good super chat from Beck Fan. King Lear, this is a Google summary of this, but this was a Shakespearean play written on December 26th, 1606, and it says King Lear is a Shakespearean tragedy about an aging king who divides his kingdom among his three daughters based on their declarations of love, disowning the honest youngest daughter, Cordelia, who refuses to flatter him. The play follows Lear's descent into madness as his elder daughters betray him, while a parallel plot involves the Earl of Gloucester being deceived by his illegitimate son Edmund, leading to his blinding. Themes include family, power, madness, and justice, culminating in a devastating finale with the deaths of King Lear, Cordelia, and others. And the plot summary is, in the love test, King Lear decides to retire and divide his kingdom, asking his daughters to profess their love for him. His first two daughters give him exaggerated, flattering speeches, while his honest youngest daughter, Cordelia, honestly states that she loves him as a daughter should, leading Lear to disinherit and banish her for not being more complimentary. Betrayal. Lear gives his kingdom to his eldest two daughters, but they soon turn on him, stripping him of his power and servants, forcing him into a storm. And the subplot, the Earl of Gloucester's illegitimate son Edmund plots against his legitimate brother Edgar, leading to Gloucester's betrayal and blinding by Regan's husband Cornwell. So, honestly, a very fitting comparison. King Lear to President Donald Trump. It is about flattery at this point, in all honesty. I think there's more to it, obviously, and I've covered the carrot, the stick, and what I think is happening. I'm going to break that down a little bit more, too, because Melania Trump gave a very interesting, impromptu, very uncharacteristic public appearance yesterday where she denounced herself from Jeffrey Epstein, actually. And I found that to be very intriguing. I actually made a post on my Twitter today about it earlier this morning. You should follow me on there, by the way, at American_ADVO, American Advocates Uncensored is the page name. And I wanted to get into that, actually, because it's kind of startling what Melania did when you really think about what's happening and the timing of all of this. It's not something Trump actually would have wanted, in my opinion. And when he was asked about it, according to reports, he was actually caught off guard by her making this public appearance and speech, at least according to reports. And so all of this is all unfolding right now. There's a carrot and a stick element, and then within Trump's personal cabinet, his administration, it definitely seems like people have figured him out. And I've been saying this on this stream that in his first term, they couldn't figure him out, and they made all the wrong mistakes when it came to combating him. And they've learned now, you don't combat him, you flatter him, and you appeal to his ego, and you tell him, you sing his praises. And then in that context, he seems more willing to do what you want. And so the King Lear comparison I just thought was too good to not bring up based off that super chat last night. But getting into Tucker Carlson's response, getting into Candace Owens' response to President Donald Trump, I first and foremost want to point out once again, hey, welcome, Glenn. There you are. Glenn, as you can see, law and order has doubled in the chat as 2009 lifeguard has been appointed as the first deputy moderator. Now, Glenn's always the commander at large here. He's always the commander at large. He's a day oneer. And unlike Trump with Alex Jones, I don't ever turn on my day oneers. So Glenn's my commander at large, but lifeguard's the deputy. And spammers in chat must be deported. But I'm a free speech absolutist, so feel free. All chatters can insult me. They can call me stupid. They can disagree with me pleasantly or unpleasantly. I don't care. And that's the bottom line here. None of your business, says the big, beautiful obituary can't come soon enough. I mean, listen, I never wished ill will on Biden. I never wished that Biden would die. I'm not going to wish Trump would die either, okay? And I despised Biden. So I'm not going to do that. I still see brief moments of humanity with Trump, in all honesty. He's got his family. You have to understand. He's got his family. He's got his kids. You know, there's still little moments that I'll see where it's like his daughter talking about the day that he was almost shot in the head and how horrifying that was for her. So it's like, I'm not going to do that. I didn't even do... Yes, listen, I made fun of Biden tripping up the stairs and stuff, but I'll even freely admit back in the day, there as much fun as I like to make of Biden, there's points and times where I would still feel sorry for Biden. I would look at him and there was like this pitiful sorrow there, where it's like he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, so does Trump. He's old, way too old to be in office, both of them. essentially. There needs to be age limits on our politicians. They have the weight of the world on their shoulders, truly. They really do. Whether or not you think they're doing a good job, it is definitely by far the most stressful position a human being can have in this world, is to be a leader of a country. And so I would watch these things where Biden would fall off his bike or trip up the stairs. And depending on the mood I was in, yes, I would laugh my ass off sometimes. And then other times I would just watch him, and it's like Biden was wandering around lost. Trump is like miserable and surrounding himself and making all of the worst decisions. And there's this degree of human pity that we should be extending to them, in all honesty. I feel pity for them. They're making all the wrong choices, and they're suffering. And they have the weight of the world on their shoulders. And no matter what they do, people are going to complain. And in most cases, by the way, rightfully so. I mean, that's just the truth. But still, there's some sort of pity that we can extend to them. Both of them at this point. So that's where I'm at with that. I'm never going to wish that Trump hits the grave sooner, in all honesty, because I didn't do that with Biden. I want to point out something, though. Hey, it's the Alex Jones guy, says multi-person. Well, I don't know if I'd call myself an Alex Jones guy. But yeah. Hey, Bold as a Lion, welcome. Please don't block me, Lifeguard. I'll behave. You better. Lifeguard's gonna be a power-hungry tyrant. No, it's gonna be good. I want to point something out here, guys. Yesterday, I'm so right on this channel. It blows my mind sometimes. Yesterday, I literally stated that Tucker Carlson was being told on by Laura Loomer. And I said there's this ridiculous juvenile schoolgirl element, like school element here being played out in this Oval Office. And that people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and Megyn Kelly and Alex Jones, for that matter, are kind of being watched and overshadowed by Laura Loomer, who for some reason, according to her own words, contacts Trump multiple times a week, and he answers her phone calls. Allegedly, this woman, Laura Loomer, allegedly has been institutionalized twice for mental health problems. There's all kinds of speculation online on whether or not she suffers from schizophrenia. Who knows? But I said this. I said Laura Loomer is telling on these people. And Trump takes her phone calls, and he listens to her. And she sends him clips, and he watches them. And then he puts out devastating, ridiculous Truth Social posts that are fracturing his MAGA base even more, by the way. And I went over all the Truth Social responses yesterday to Trump bashing those four prominent right-wing pundits. Even on Truth Social, he was losing people. They were pissed beyond belief. Well, come to find out today, look at this. This was posted this morning by Laura Loomer, and she admits it. I was right. Again, she admits it. Take a listen to this. I got the clip pulled up. You can take a listen. Let me make sure I got the sound up good.
But the president has had enough of Tucker's shit. And yeah, I'm just going to admit it. I send the president Tucker Carlson's clip so he can see the shit that he says about him. I do. And I want that motherfucker Tucker Carlson to know that I'm the one who knifed him from the front. I want him to know. I'm not talking about physical violence, physical knifing. But yeah, I'm the one that sent the president all your shit, Tucker, because he deserves to see the fact that you are lying about him and you are smearing him and you are saying the most vile things about our country and our president, and you are creating so much chaos. You're going to cause the Democrats to take the House and the Senate, and you are endangering our national security by whitewashing this barbaric death cult ideology known as Islam.
Okay, so I was right. She admits it. I knew this was the case already. I've been paying attention to what's been happening, so that's how I understood that she is, in fact, telling on Trump like he's a principal of a school. Excuse me, Mr. Principal, did you see what Tucker said about you? He's very mean. He's very mean, sir. Very mean, sir. Please punish him. So that's literally happening. And then on top of it, here's the ass backwardness of this. And before we get into Tucker's clapback, actually I'm going to go into Alex Jones' clapback first. Then we're going to cover Tucker's official statement on Trump's Truth Social post, as well as Candace Owens, who's echoing Tucker in a lot of ways. Megyn Kelly actually appears to have not yet made a statement on this. But before I get into that, I just want to point something out here, a big problem, actually, when it comes to this. Laura Loomer, for a while now, by the way, has been insisting that it is going to be what she calls the woke Reich. And this is, of course, those who are critical of Israeli government actions, critical of the Greater Israel Region Plan, critical of Zionism. Not anti-Semitic, by the way. It's not anti-Semitic to be critical of a foreign government. It's not anti-Semitic to be critical of Zionism either, or the Greater Israel Region, or any of their plans there in the Middle East. But she claims that this woke Reich is emerging, and she says this will be the downfall of the Republicans. And there's this narrative going around that the Republicans will lose the midterms because of podcasters who are anti-Semitic, part of a woke Reich movement, she insists, and that it's going to be the podcasters that fracture the Republican Party and divide them beyond repair and cause them to lose in the midterms. This is nonsense. There is no such thing as a podcaster that wields enough influence to do such a thing, especially when podcasters, by the way, are simply reporting the news as they see it. The reason if Republicans lose in the midterms, and I believe they will, I believe they'll definitely lose the House, and I think there's a majority chance at this point that they lose the Senate too. They could lose both chambers of Congress, truly, they could. If they lose, they have only themselves to blame. That's it. The Republicans were put there on a mandate. How quickly we forget, and I don't know how, because Trump used to say it every fucking day, multiple times sometimes. You know, I won all 7 swing states, the popular vote. That means you're on a mandate. You're in here by the people. The Republicans had a historical victory in the year 2024, with Trump winning the executive, with them winning the Senate and the House, all 7 swing states. They crushed every state, this is a fact, every state in America shifted more red. Even the blue ones became less blue. And even the liberal scum states like California and New York gave up liberal ground, blue ground, and became more red. I have never seen anything like that in my lifetime when it comes to Republicans. This was their moment. This was their chance to actually get shit done, and they have failed miserably. They've gotten a few things done, absolutely, and I've sung their praises when they do, but they have utterly failed, and they only have themselves to blame. Podcasters, right-wing pundit, third-party independent journalist podcasters will not be the reason for their defeat in the midterms. Just because they don't like the narrative that's starting to be put out there, especially by younger ones, about not voting in the midterms, because believe it or not, no, we don't owe any single candidate or party our vote at any given time. No, we actually don't need to toe the party line. Yeah, that is true. But that's not what's going to cost them midterms. Their actions are what's going to cost them the midterms. If by now we had truly deported over 1 million illegal immigrants out of this country, if by now the border wall was being conceivably built in a way that you could see it, the news was covering it, border wall actually being built, if by now the Monroe Doctrine was in full effect and Trump had actually avoided this Iran conflict, which I'm going to cover later and give numerous updates on, because it's turning out to be even more of a disaster as time goes on, if Trump had actually told Israel no and said, no, we will not bomb Iran, that sounds like an idiotic idea to us. If by now Trump had actually done something good and taken Greenland, I know that's a controversial one, but I'm talking about Republicans here. I'm talking about Republican voters. If Trump had followed through on any of this stuff, right, then they would have no problems coming up on the midterms. They wouldn't have to be worrying about this. And I've pointed this out on this channel as well. The narrative going into the midterms this year is really not much better or any different, really, than the narrative that we went into the 2024 elections with, that we saw from the Democrats when it came to why they lost in such a humiliating way. Remember what the narrative was in 2024. The Democrats couldn't really come up with anything concrete in actuality, because Kamala Harris was an airhead, by the way. But they couldn't come up with anything concrete on why to vote for them. Kamala Harris made some promises, but people were trying to connect the dots on those and say, how do we get there? And ultimately, the Democrat narrative, the main Democrat narrative in 2024 on why you should vote for Kamala is because she's not Donald Trump. It was supposed to be that simple. That ultimately failed for a very good reason. Trump actually, truthfully, you went on his website, and he actually truthfully had a step-by-step, very detailed, laid-out plan I watched it. I remembered. I watched every single video of him discussing all of his plans and topics, from the China tariffs to the border wall, shutting down the border, immigration, mass deportations. He did actually lay it out, which is what makes it even more inexcusable, by the way, for him to have not accomplished nearly as much as he should have in this time frame. And Republican Party as well, it falls right under that. Congress and Senate, they're just as bad. You should see the act they're trying to sneak past right now, the Dignidad Act. Maybe I'll cover that too. I didn't plan on it. But they're actually just betraying their entire movement right now. But the bottom line is, vote for Kamala because she isn't Trump. That didn't work. What are we seeing narrative-wise now going into the midterms? The best the Republicans can offer us is vote for Trump or he'll be impeached. That's it. That's it. And then we turn on well, I don't turn on the TV, but you turn on social media and you see Trump saying, we're in a golden age. Everything is just wonderful right now. Inflation's up. Prices are up. Beef per pound costs more than the national average minimum wage. Things are not cheaper. Everything's more expensive. I don't know what world people are living in, but things are not cheaper. And it's not just gas. Consumer prices are up. Consumer confidence is down. The markets are all over the place. And the best they can say is, well, if you don't vote for us again, Democrats will get the House and they'll impeach Trump. Bearing in mind, by the way, Trump brought us to another foreign forever war that we're currently in and that is being negotiated in Pakistan now under a ceasefire that's not happening because Israel can't stop bombing other countries. So what do you mean? Vote for Republicans or they'll impeach Trump? How about good? How about actually, I might not be so inclined to want to prevent Trump from being impeached. How about actually, I'm very suspicious of J.D. Vance, and maybe it would actually be a beneficial thing to see a 2-year test run of what J.D. Vance would be like as president. Mr. Peter Thiel friend, Mr. Palantir backer. Maybe it would actually be a good idea in the 2-year limited time span to see how J.D. Vance runs things before I decide ultimately if I want to even vote for him at all in 2028. I'm leaning no right now. I'm leaning no on anybody currently part of this current administration if they're going to run. Marco Rubio, he's an interventionalist. Marco Rubio wants to invade countries. So that's the best they've got. That's the best they've got. Vote for us, otherwise Trump gets impeached. But Laura Loomer wants to say that it's the podcasters that are to blame. It's podcasters. It's all Tucker Carlson's fault. If he wouldn't just be speaking about his opinions on things, the Republicans would be more united than ever. It's these damn podcasters giving their opinions on things. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That is bullshit. And by the way, this is the kind of preemptive narrative you hear before censorship, right? What's going on with Tucker Carlson? Well, he's possibly going to be investigated under the FARA Act because now there's claims being made that he's a foreign agent being paid by foreign countries to spread propaganda that benefits them. What's going on with Alex Jones? Well, he's apparently under Trump, everybody who was banned on YouTube was supposed to be welcomed back on. And so I distinctly remember this. Alex Jones, I actually have a YouTube short up about it. Alex Jones creates a YouTube channel account. It's banned within 12 hours, completely taken down. So Alex Jones is already censored, and now Trump has revealed, of course, according to yesterday, that he basically essentially, despite receiving early on support from Alex Jones and continuous support from Alex Jones at the expense of Alex Jones, Trump has essentially already admitted that he never really believed that Alex Jones deserved to be spared from the consequences that he faced. And you can say all you want, by the way, that Alex Jones lost his fortune because he criticized Sandy Hook victims and said it was a conspiracy false flag event. That's bullshit. First of all, it's free speech. I don't care how offensive it is. He should have never lost all that money. But second of all, the reason why he lost all of that money is because it was very obviously weaponized lawfare. The same law firm that took Alex Jones' money had a lawyer that was not directly associated with that law firm. What was it, the Paul Weiss law firm? Not directly associated, but one of the lawyers, one of the most prominent lawyers of that law firm that took all of Alex Jones' money was the same representative of that law firm, not associated with him at the time, that sued Donald Trump while Biden was in office. Is that a coincidence? No. So Alex Jones, he's already censored. Tucker Carlson's under investigation now. And who knows what's going to happen with Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens, right? Some of these people I'm suspicious of to begin with. Tucker Carlson, a little bit shady. He knows too much sometimes. And he'll just casually frame it in a way where it's like it's expected we know some of these things. And it's like, how do you know that? So sometimes I'm suspicious of him to begin with, by the way. William F. Buckley vibes in a way. His father was CIA. Candace Owens kind of the same way. Megyn Kelly, who knows? But the bottom line is, this is preemptive censorship talk, and it is coming from people like Laura Loomer, who are saying, well, they're going to cost us the midterm elections. Then you have Trump saying now on social media, he's talking about treason charges for reporters that don't report on the war correctly. I saw something like that a couple days ago. What's going on with that? And this is the problem with war, by the way. Not only is truth the first casualty of war, but on top of it, war never extends the rights of humanity. It always serves to take them away. It restricts your rights and oftentimes does so permanently. People only ever lose in war. And the only thing that ever makes a gain in war are the wealthy elites who are invested in it and technology. That's the only benefit to war. Technology, the expansion of territory and resources potentially. But even then, what are we doing? Resource wars are a thing of the past almost at this point. So that's why I wanted to say her reasoning is completely bullshit. Podcasters won't cost the Republicans the midterms. They're doing that to themselves. They have shot themselves in their foot at every step of the way. Congress has gone on vacation more than ever. They went on vacation early to avoid signing into effect the Epstein Files Transparency Act that Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene had pushed. They were just so close to pushing that through last summer, and Speaker Mike Johnson decides Congress should go on vacation early this year, don't you think? So all of these tactics, we don't forget. They say that the American voter has a short memory. But the thing is, these podcasters out here, I guess myself included at this point, we're going to ensure that the American public does not forget. And therein lies the problem. That's why they hate the podcasters. Because we do our best to speak the truth, or at least to dodge the rhetoric and narratives and just read between the lines. This is the critical thinking that it takes to understand what's happening. And that's what more and more people are doing on social media. They're reading in between the lines, and then they're talking about it. That's called free speech and free expression, by the way. But that's what's happening, and that's the problem to them. But that shouldn't be the problem if the Republican Party was doing its fucking job and doing what it was voted to do. It's on a mandate, and it forfeited the mandate. And so, yeah, you know what? This midterm election, I'll be staying my ass home with a smile, and I'll go live. I'll probably do an all-nighter. And every state that I see that goes blue or becomes more blue, I will smile and celebrate at. Not because I'm a Democrat in the slightest, or not, and certainly not because I actually love the idea of it, truthfully. Truthfully, it's terrible, in my opinion. I'm a social and fiscal conservative. But I will smile because I can't stand weakness. And that's what the Republican Party is. They live to serve the Democrats. They live to hand over their power the second that they get it. And it's almost as if, forgive me for thinking this, but it's almost as if the Republicans like the idea better of not being in control. Maybe they like the idea better because they sell their votes to Democrats. I don't even know. But I want weakness to be punished, and you punish weakness politically by allowing weak idiots like the current Republicans in Congress and the Senate to lose their power. Just get rid of them. Get rid of them, and I'll say this too. People are saying, well, it's going to make it worse if the Democrats take control. Yeah, that's the point. You want to know why Trump's currently in office right now? It's because things got so bad from 2021 to 2025 that people woke up and they decided to vote for something different. And so this casualty behind the Republican Party right now and this nonchalant attitude of MAGA, this arrogance mixed with nonchalantness of, oh, well, MAGA's united and it doesn't matter. The Democrats can't win. Fuck you. Fuck you. You're part of the problem for not acknowledging that there's a problem. And so things need to get a lot worse in order for people to zoom out and see what the real problem is right now. And of course, the real problem, truthfully, the biggest problem is being highlighted in this Iran war, and the MAGA cheerleaders don't want to admit it. Let me look at some chats. We're going to get into this. Alex Jones has responded. Tucker Carlson has responded. Candace Owens has responded. But I don't want to miss your guys' chats. Please, guys, by the way, if you haven't already, double tap your phone screens. Hit that like button. It truly does help the stream perform well in the algorithm. And be sure to subscribe right now to American Advocates if you haven't already. And when you do, make sure notifications are turned on so you're notified every single time I go live. All right, what is going on here? So, Glenn Lifeguard, is there anything in chat worth reading, or is it all goy slop swine shit? Does anyone believe Melania? Did you see Melania's speech? Leah, I'm going to cover Melania's speech, actually. I'm tying that in with what's happening, honestly, when it comes to... I'm tying it in, actually, for the end of this first segment here, where I'm going to discuss Alex Jones, Tucker Carlson, and Candace. Candace brings up a couple of points about Trump, actually, and I'm going to use that to tie it into Melania's speech. I made a post about it on my X. You should follow me there as well. Like I said, at American_ADVO, ADVO, American Advocates Uncensored. I made a post about it today. It was kind of more of a slightly pondering, more fun post. I don't want to say that I genuinely fully believe it, but the timing of all of this with Melania's speech about Epstein is very interesting. So I am going to cover that and just throw out a couple ideas out there. Another whiner with no solution, says JTB. I have the best solutions, JTB. You just need to hang around long enough to listen. Nico Hiak. Critical thinking. Yes, correct. In an interview, Donald Trump was told if we were at war, it could stop the midterms and the election itself. He said, oh, really? And here we are. Yeah. Well, here's the other thing, actually. Let me just expand on that real fast. I've mentioned this before, but it is funny at where Trump's priorities go to and what he's willing to sacrifice depending on the priority. So for mass deportations, he pulls Greg Bovino out of Minnesota. He ends mass deportations, essentially, forces Greg Bovino, the commander-at-large for Border Patrol, to go into an early retirement. And essentially the justification is, stop saying the term mass deportations. The constraint is the midterm elections this year, and mass deportations are losing support. We've lost control of the messaging. Alex Preddy and Renee Good, two white people, with suicidal levels of empathy, decided to go get shot and killed for Somalians. Who, by the way, the Somalians, did you see them take to the streets to protest the death of them? No, because the Somalians don't care. They don't give a shit at all. They're here to defraud the state government and send the money back to their shithole country. But because that happens and it's a national outrage, it's a true color revolution formula being played out every single time. And the Republicans can never seize control of the messaging properly. And so because that happens, don't say mass deportations. It's only the violent criminals now. It's only the worst of the worst. Greg Bovino's been retired. Tom Homan goes in for PR control, and it's all because of midterms is the basic implication there. The midterms, we can't lose the midterms, and the mass deportations will cause us to lose. Fast forward 2 months later, we need to strike Tehran and go into another Middle East forever war. And Trump literally says the day after he doesn't care about gas prices, and he literally said, I don't care about the polling. Isn't that funny how that works? So at our expense here domestically in America, we don't get mass deportations, which is perhaps the most important domestic policy issue that Trump could focus on, and easily a number one or number two reason he was voted in. But because of the midterms, it's, oh, well, we can't do that anymore. It's just not popular enough. We can maybe revisit it after the midterms. But the second Bibi Netanyahu calls, it's, well, I don't care about the polling. I don't care about the gas prices going up or the economy or how this affects the Americans. It must be short-term pain for long-term gain. The Americans will have to learn to suffer for the greater interests of the world and for Persian Revolution, whatever that was supposed to be. And so there we go. Boom. Middle East immediately. Midterms be damned. Doesn't matter anymore. Isn't that funny how that works? You should be outraged by that, by the way. You should be outraged by that, and you should think about it from that perspective every single time you hear one of these doomer podcaster grifters that Laura Loomer and Dan Bongino rag on all the time. These doomer grifter podcasters who say, don't vote in the midterms, the Republicans don't deserve your vote. That's what you should think about. That's the framing that you should have in all of this. It's not a betrayal to the Republicans. You can't betray them. You are the people. It's we the people. They owe us everything. We owe them nothing. So it's not a betrayal. Our allegiance belongs to our country. And as a result, we vote the way that we think is best for our country. And if the Republicans are supposed to be that party, but they betray us, they deserve utter annihilation, politically speaking. Utter annihilation, meaning they deserve to lose power. Melania should get a Nobel Peace Prize for bringing this regime down. I'm going to cover it a little bit later. The censorship is a slippery slope, says Lifeguard. Yep. Look up what central casting means, then look up the video of Trump mentoring central. I'll take a look at that later for sure, Bold is the line. I'll take a look at that off stream. If I find it fascinating, I'll do an episode on it, or at least cover it. Anything else here? How could a crooked boomer become a mod? Eddie, take it easy. He's already vowed to not ban you, Eddie. It's going to be okay. Does everyone in chat realize the host here is way smarter than all of you? Says Glenn. Glenn, see, that's why you're my day one top tier moderator. And yes, it's true, by the way. It's absolutely true. I am infinitely smarter than almost everybody. I am certainly probably the smartest live streamer on YouTube. It's not even close. I've accurately predicted everything from ceasefire extensions in the Middle East, basing it off of the China war tariffs last year. Nobody else drew those comparisons. It's literally not even close. Nobody talks about things the way I do, and that's why you should, of course, subscribe right now to American Advocates to stop being swine. Stop being swine today. Stop living as a goy. Subscribe right now. Let your eyes be opened. Accept reality. Breathe it in. It's time to wake up. Now, here's Alex. Let's get into this. Here's Alex Jones's response, of course, to Trump's True Social post yesterday, where Trump basically said, well, he deserves to be bankrupt. He's a scumbag. Trump just knocking down Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly, and what's his name? Alex Jones. Here's Alex Jones. Here's what he had to say.
I'm just going to scorch earth Trump to get him back on track. Only way to do it is to go after him viciously. You've already shit all over me. And if you try to rub it in, I just, at that point, I don't care anymore. So if you think I've been coming after you, if you think that I'm trying to get clicks by attacking you so the Democrats that don't buy anything from me and don't like me want to put me in jail, if you think I've been on your ass, say one more thing. One more thing out of your mouth. And Laura Loomer, send him this. Okay? One more thing. When I've gone through hell back in your ass because you were the lesser of two evils, then I'm going to show you how to cow eat the cabbage. Do one more thing. You should be kissing my ass.
So true.
But instead, you shit all over me and rub it in. I'm not looking for a fight, but if you want one, you came to the right place.
So true. Honestly, listen, I don't care what anybody thinks in chat. Alex Jones is the man, and Trump does owe him a lot. And this, again, is the problem. I just ranted about how we don't owe politicians or a party anything in this country. They owe us everything. It's no different with Trump. This is where the MAGA cheerleaders have the hardest time with this. Anytime you criticize anything now, they call you out for your loyalty to Trump. I'm here to tell you there's no such thing. I don't owe Trump any loyalty. The second he displeases me is the second I reserve my right to criticize him. The second he betrays me is the second I reserve my right to speak out against him and try to rally more people to also take my side against him. That's what it means to live in a constitutional republic or a democracy, whatever you want to call it. I don't believe truly we're under either category anymore anyway, but the foundations of this country were built off of that, and that's what it means. This is not North Korea. We don't owe our dear leader, we don't owe him loyalty. That's not how it works. It's not how America's supposed to work. He owes us everything. We put him in that position under the promises that he made, under us believing. Because we believed what he said he would do, we put him there. He owes us everything, literally. I mean, even more so in his case, by the way. Because otherwise, he'd be sitting in a fucking prison cell. If it weren't for us electing him, he'd be in prison. I don't care what people have to say. Butler was a crazy moment. Oh, we owe Trump so much. Did you see how he almost got killed for us in the movement? Yes, I did see that. He still owes us everything. And if he's not going to make my life better, this is what we need to do. This is how we should always look at politics. If my life doesn't start getting better, by the way, bearing in mind, we're now approaching the marker where I consider the economy to fully be switching over to the new president's economy. The first year, Trump is well within his rights to look back on Biden and say, well, this is why everything's messed up. We're fixing it. There's a delayed effect. This is true. This is just true. It's for every president. The first year, the president has every right to still remind you, well, I'm still overcoming the hurdles of the previous administration. We're over that point now. And I would say in the next month or two, it's fair to say that we are officially in the Trump economy. And is that economy going to make our lives better? Maybe there was a chance of that, considering next month the Fed chair is up, Jerome Powell will be out, and the interest rates could have potentially been cut. But now they can't. Inflation is soaring because of this war, which means the interest rates are not getting cut, and they might actually have to be raised. And that's just one problem. Our petrodollar is now being jeopardized in this Middle East war. Gas prices have caused transportation costs to skyrocket, which means consumer goods are going to continue going up, and we're going to feel a delayed effect on that, by the way. Don't kid yourself. If the peace talks miraculously go flawlessly tomorrow in Pakistan with J.D. Vance, Jared Kushner, and Steve Witkoff, somehow if they go miraculously good, and this all ends tomorrow, don't think Monday you're going to wake up to everything being drastically cheaper all of a sudden. Quite the contrary. Over the next coming weeks and months, our prices will keep going up because there's a delayed effect on the transportation cost and the goods being shipped in trucks and the increase in gas cost. That's one part of the problem. Oil tankers are still sitting outside the Strait of Hormuz, not being allowed to pass through for the most part. We will be feeling the effects of this war for months to come. Very likely, if it ends tomorrow miraculously, which, newsflash for you, it very likely won't end tomorrow. I'm actually pretty confident in predicting that it won't. But if it somehow did, we would feel the effects for at least 4 months, maybe even 6, which takes us to October, 1 month before midterm elections. Just understand that. And that's the framing, again, of, is my life getting better? You got to put yourself first at some point. Again, this is not some kingdom. This is not glory to the king or the queen. This is a president. We put him in power for a limited time to do his best to make our life better, objectively. And if that's not happening, and a midterm election's coming, that's the basis of which you should make your decisions on who to vote for if you decide to vote at all. And look at what loyalty earns you, by the way. Look at what loyalty earns you. Alex Jones is a day oneer for Trump. I played the video yesterday here live on my stream. I played the video. Alex Jones chose Trump over Ted Cruz under immense pressure to do the opposite. Alex Jones had Trump on his show, and at the time, nobody was supporting Trump. Everyone thought he was ridiculous. And Alex remained loyal. Actually, Alex remained loyal too long. I haven't watched Alex Jones in a while because for the past couple of months, I was wondering where his head was at. And simultaneously, I understood why he was delusional about it, because Alex has a lot on the line. But look at where loyalty gets you. Nowhere with Trump. Trump himself is disloyal. Tucker's made his statement too. And Tucker's loyalty also is something to remember. You know, the whole thing is, not only has Alex Jones been loyal, but the story of Tucker Carlson, Trump, the funniest thing about this is Trump made fun of Tucker and Alex Jones for Tucker losing his job at Fox and Alex Jones being bankrupt. I've already explained why Alex Jones being bankrupt was because of Trump, his support of Trump. And you have to read in between the lines to understand that once again, which most people are not capable of doing. But the lawsuit, the common denominator being the law firm or the lawyers involved in that law firm, etc. Alex Jones lost his fortune because of his support of Trump. It was weaponized lawfare, without a doubt. Tucker experienced the same thing, and Trump made fun of both of them for this. Tucker lost his job at Fox because he covered the endless list of voting discrepancies that we were witnessing back in the 2020s, back in the early 2020-2021 election. Tucker refused to not cover that, and Fox News couldn't stand it. And Tucker lost his job because of it. It had everything to do with Trump. So that's what's despicable about it. And now we see, I want to play this too. Now we see, before I get into Tucker's statement here, the smear campaign, which is also just so ironic. It seems like every time President Donald Trump, it seems like every time he does something that's not popular or makes a major mistake or somebody speaks out poorly about him, not only do we get Trump lashing out against them publicly, which I'll give him credit. I oftentimes it's funny. His shit about Bridget Macron, Emmanuel Macron's wife in France, mogging Candace Owens, essentially is what he said. That's pretty funny. But overall, he comes at them. And now what do we see? Well, there's this extension of this narrative it's like CNN of all places. I feel like that there's something more going on behind the scenes here because you wouldn't expect this out of CNN. But nevertheless, here's now a recent CNN report on Tucker Carlson and his net favorability in the GOP. And this is so weird. I'm going to explain why in a second, but take a listen to this.
Let's start off with Tucker Carlson, who has been in absolute free fall with Republicans. I mean, just take a look at this. Look at this trend line. Tucker Carlson's net favorable. Back in March of 2024, when he and Donald Trump were very close friends, look at this. He was at plus 54 points. Look at where he is today at only plus 7 points among Republicans, and that includes GOP-leaning independents. I mean, that is a drop of, 47 percentage points. My goodness gracious, when you go up against Donald Trump and you want to appeal to the Republican base, to quote the movie Good Burger, you go on the grinder, and that is exactly what has happened to Tucker Carlson, who has absolutely collapsed among Republicans.
Okay. What I want to point out here is Tucker's not a political candidate, and CNN is running some sort of popularity poll on Tucker Carlson. I've almost never seen that happen personally. Maybe they've done it before. I've never seen that before for somebody who's not a political candidate running a current campaign. I've never seen that, or for somebody that's sitting in office. Not saying that they haven't done it, but this is my first time seeing that for somebody not a politician currently. And there is speculation, of course, Tucker may run for president, but he's not doing anything yet, hasn't announced anything. So that in and of itself is pretty weird. But on top of it, they can run this and say this all they want. The bottom line is it doesn't change the actual reality of the fact, which is that Tucker Carlson's podcast is literally ranked number one in highest viewership and watch time out of any political podcast currently. And it's been ranked number one for quite a while now. Tucker Carlson's monthly viewership is anywhere between 100 to 143 million views, with hundreds of millions of hours of watch time. So this is a smear campaign. That's what that is. Because it's already weird enough for them to do that and talk about GOP favorability for a non-politician on CNN. But then on top of it, it goes against the actual logic and the actual numbers of his podcast being the number one podcast. So what are they doing? And now it's like they're going to get a shout out for Trump. Maybe that's the incentive all along. Maybe it's, again, King Lear, like I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, King Lear, and how everyone has figured out that if you, while the empire is falling and being divided, if you just compliment Trump enough, he'll like you. Because Trump's been singing CNN praises a little bit more since that ridiculous North Korea level polling came out showing that Trump had 100% support of MAGA with the Iran war. Now into the reality. Tucker Carlson made his official statement today on all of this. And to summarize it, but I'll read the full-length statement. To summarize it, Tucker Carlson was kind of making headlines because he said, in quotes, "I've always felt sorry. I've always liked Trump, and I still feel sorry for him as I do for all slaves." He went on to add that the president is not making his own decisions, and in quotes said that he's hemmed in by other forces and he can't make his own decisions. It's awful to watch. So that's a summary of his official statement. Here's the actual full-length statement here. It's titled, "He's in a Tough Spot." And it says, establishment media never reports this, but the Israeli government has a storied history of blackmailing U.S. presidents. Perhaps the most jarring example occurred in the 90s when Israel used recordings of a Bill Clinton-Monica Lewinsky phone sex session as leverage to pressure Clinton into releasing convicted spy Jonathan Pollard, who, funny enough, Jonathan Pollard has had a lot to say about nuclear warfare as he now lives and resides in Israel, by the way. I don't know how many people even know who Jonathan Pollard is, but if you don't, you should absolutely look him up. That's a fascinating read, and most people, I feel like, don't even know who he is. We're not joking. That really happened. The phone sex story is worth remembering as President Trump attempts to end the Iran war. Like many other things Israel has done, it shows that America's special ally is willing to play very dirty to achieve its goals. Dark money campaign contributions, extortion, physical threats, and even assassination. In their anti-Christian worldview, the ends always justify the means. They have no issue destroying lives. Israel's current top priority is making sure I've said this on this stream, I've said this on this channel now since the start of the war. I have said this when everybody else said, and you know why I said it too? You know why I said Israel and the U.S. would have a divergence in interests, and it would cause a conflict internally between the allies, the greatest allies, the senior and junior partner. Do you know why I said that? It's because I was a fucking idiot last summer and I said Operation Midnight Hammer wouldn't lead to World War III, which I was technically right on, but I thought that would be the end of it. And what an idiot I was. And as right as I like to gloat about being all the time on this channel, especially lately over the last 8 months, I freely admit where I was wrong. All these years of listening to Alex Jones, I believed in some sort of an elite group, but I wouldn't recognize the fact that a large portion of those elites, a large portion of what was happening, was absolutely coming from the Israeli government and intelligence agencies in the name of Zionism. Now I freely admit it, my eyes are completely open, and it's impossible to not see the truth. And if I could go back in time, I would have never put out the video saying that Operation Midnight Hammer wouldn't lead to World War III, even though in principle I was right. And in principle I understood back then that it was a temporary excursion. Now I understand. We're back. We're back. Understand what the concept of a foreign war is. We are back. We're back there. And if this ends at any point in time again, you have to deal with the simpletons who say, see, it's not a war. It was just an excursion. And it only lasted for 8 weeks total. But that is absolutely true. And Israel will do anything to keep us there. I've been saying that since the start of this war, February 28th, or the next day maybe I said it. But I did say that. And every time, believe your eyes in what you're able to see, hear, and read. Believe them. Look at the actions, read between the lines a little bit, and formulate an opinion. And understand. That is absolutely what's happening. That's why the second they get wind about Iran peace talks and the Pakistani prime minister announcing it, they launch 100 bombs in 10 minutes in South Lebanon. They don't want us to leave there. And it is quicksand for America because of that. It says, Tucker went on to say, Israel's current top priority is making sure Operation Epic Fury does not stop. They know the U.S. fighting their war for them is the best chance at expanding their borders and becoming a global superpower, and a peace deal would foil their plot. Based on the country's past, its leaders are doubtlessly willing to push as hard as necessary to ensure the bloodshed continues. That could mean Clinton-style blackmail against Trump or something far more morbid. And I want you guys to hang on, continue viewing, and keep that in mind. He's discussing blackmail against Trump, and you may think that that's impossible. But I am going to be covering, in a few minutes here, another story, after I address the statements being made from Tucker and Candace. I'm covering the next story here, and I want you guys to remember that. Blackmail against Trump. I have the video on my channel. It was not a live video. I put it out 3 weeks ago now, and I said it's not just the carrot. There's a stick, and the stick actually comes first. The threat of the stick comes first, and it pushes you in the direction they want, and the carrot is the reward to encourage you to keep doing their bidding. And people don't understand this. They don't understand the carrot. They don't understand that dynamic. But it's very real, and it is used all the time. And so remember this, because I'm going to tie that in a little bit later. He goes on to say, we do not know for sure whether that is happening, but the mere possibility is haunting enough to keep the president up at night. He is under a level of pressure that most people cannot fathom, with rabid Israel firsters viciously harassing him anytime he dares to stray, even slightly, from their favorite country's agenda. Their shameless pursuit is steadfast enough to make even a man like Donald Trump go mad. They are as persistent as any group in history, no matter how well the White House has treated them in the past. They are never grateful. They always want more, and they refuse to give the president even an inch of breathing room. It is an unrelenting full-court press. Bibi Netanyahu has visited the White House 7 times in just over a year, and he did 6 visits in a year, in 12 months. Every other month, he was in the White House. And a lot of times, the coincidental timing of certain things taking place in this administration could not be overlooked as well. It actually started with Trump taking a 180-degree turn on the Epstein files just shortly after a visit from Bibi Netanyahu. And then another instance that was blatant was Bibi Netanyahu visits and Operation Midnight Hammer occurs, 2.5 weeks later? These are not coincidences. If it keeps happening, it's not a coincidence. Tucker concludes by saying, or does he conclude, or? Yeah, he concludes by saying, we decided to write about this after Trump published a Truth Social post attacking our company. Megyn Kelly, Candace Owens, and Alex Jones, each of whom supported him for years. Rather than engaging in petty name-calling, we want to give the president some grace. He is facing, they're taking the moral high ground on Trump now. He is facing a level of pressure that is dark enough to make him abandon his campaign promises and morph into the precise kind of politician he once vowed to destroy. He would not have let that happen unless his personal stakes were really high. We hope he overcomes. So that was the statement from Tucker Carlson, and Candace Owens has gone on to echo this statement, reportedly saying that she told President Donald Trump that he will most certainly die a slave and that he is in chains right now and the entire world can see it. Now, Candace Owens also did an episode already. I'm going to play a segment of that for you guys to listen to. This is what she had to say.
It seems like you can't put together a coherent thought. Let me tell you something, and this is just reality, okay? Going back to just the rules of the jungle. Okay, let all the politicians and advisors around you evaporate for just a moment. Just you and me, ready? People will not fight beside, behind, or for someone who is fundamentally disloyal. Okay?
So true.
If disloyalty and deceit is in your nature, then I highly suggest that you combine it with silence. You can be what you are, but I would advise you do it quietly, Trump. Because MAGA is no longer commanded by you, and you know it. You know it. You belong to the Epstein class. That is your legacy now. People will see your name on buildings, whatever was agreed upon in those boardrooms, Jared Kushner, Trump, Gaza, hotel, whatever you tweeted, so crass. They will see that. You will earn that. And then when they see it, they will think about how many children had to die or be raped by men on islands so that you could stick the Trump name upon a building. And for clarity, Mr. President, that's not my fault. That's not Megyn Kelly's fault. That's not Tucker Carlson's fault. You made that trade. You chose money above respect. And what an absolute shame that you chose to do that toward the end of your life, okay? Because you can't take money and things and stuff with you when you go, just your soul. And you sold yours for what? Another gilded ballroom?
All right, I don't mean to laugh, but Candace Owens makes the weirdest faces while she talks. That video literally ends with her going, for what, another gilded ballroom? That's why I don't really listen to her show. I find her annoying, but she's completely right, by the way. Completely correct there. And she made some major statements there that are important to address. And honestly, it's her talking about how he's part of the Epstein class. That is not her implying that he's actually guilty and criminally implicated in the files. What it means is he is now involved in protecting that class of people and working with them, which is, I would say, true. And that actually ties in with what I want to cover here next, because Melania Trump gave a very I would actually say startling, but also very uncharacteristic speech. And the rumored reporting was, of course, I don't know if there was an actual official video of Trump saying it, but I remember seeing on X, Trump was asked about Melania's address, public statement, speech, address to the media about Epstein. And he seemed caught off guard by it. He seemed like unaware that it even took place, which makes sense, actually, because we've seen how this has unfolded. And I mentioned how Trump took that 180-degree turn on the Epstein files back in last May, conveniently not long after Bibi had been in the White House. And it all plays its part. It's all connected, in my opinion, especially because I've covered the carrot and the stick and how Epstein Island was more than just some sicko on an island doing depraved acts to barely legal girls, or in oftentimes some cases underage girls. It's more than that, and people need to zoom out. They need to not get lost. They need to be able to see the forest through the trees and understand what the Epstein Island was actually used as by our intelligence agencies. This is still, unfortunately, a conspiracy because, you can read the files and draw this conclusion rather quickly, in my opinion. But of course, you won't hear this be said this way by official news sources or by our government. But that is I have read at length so many of the Epstein files. I've personally focused on direct emails to Jeffrey Epstein and his replies. This is one of the things that really last year started formulating and changing my perspective on Israel, in all honesty. Mossad played a big part in this, I think, the IDF, CIA, possibly MI6. So Melania gives this address, and it's very uncharacteristic, especially in this term. Melania, for those of you who don't know, she's actually pretty loyal to Trump. But one of the issues that Melania went under, or one of the issues she faced, was during the Biden presidency. They, of course, were raiding Mar-a-Lago. It was an extreme pursuit against Trump under Biden. Weaponized lawfare, without a doubt. There's just no way around that. And Melania was very startled by this, and she couldn't stand it. And you can't blame her. It's, unfortunately, Trump's family was part of the equation here when it comes to political persecution. And so people aren't aware of this, but Melania has pretty much told Trump when he decided to rerun in 2023, 2024 to become elected again, she told Trump she didn't want to be involved as much anymore, and that she would show up for major events as any first lady should, but she didn't want to be as involved as she was in the first term. She didn't want the public spotlight on her that much, and she doesn't even live in the White House with him. She waits for him back at their private residence that he, of course, visits oftentimes on the weekend. She's too stressed out by it, according to what you can see, according to her statements. You can just gather that. So for her to have done this is very uncharacteristic. She just doesn't do this. She'll show up, she'll look nice on the holidays, she'll be a nice arm piece for Trump, etc. And she'll make statements occasionally, and she'll still do stuff as the first lady. But to make this kind of a statement out of the blue, with not really much of a heads up, is very, very interesting. This is what she had to say.
I never been friends with Epstein. Donald and I were invited to the same parties as Epstein from time to time, since overlapping in social circles is common in New York City and Palm Beach. To be clear, I never had a relationship with Epstein or his accomplice, Maxwell. My email reply to Maxwell cannot be categorized as anything more than casual correspondence. My polite reply to her email doesn't amount to anything more than a trivial note. I am not Epstein's victim. Epstein did not introduce me to Donald Trump. I met my husband by chance at a New York City party in 1998. This initial encounter with my husband is documented in detail in my book, Melania. The first time I crossed paths with Epstein was in the year 2000 at an event Donald and I attended together. At the time, I had never met Epstein and had no knowledge of his criminal undertakings. Numerous fake images and statements about Epstein and me have been calculating on social media for years now. Be cautious about what you believe. These images and stories are completely false.
Okay, so this is what she had to say publicly, and it was out of the blue. There was no advance warning, like I said. And it really does mean pretty much one thing when this happens. And it means that somewhere, some sort of news agency, article, some sort of a journalist group, some journalist, etc., mainstream media or otherwise, was running a story on her. And what's common to take place when that occurs is, as a courtesy, especially for somebody as high profile as Melania, is they'll give them a call straight up and they'll say, hey, listen, we've got this story. This is what we're writing about. Your involvement with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. We're using certain emails that we've received or photographic images. They won't go into too much detail, but they'll give them a heads up. And they do that for a multitude of reasons, not only as a courtesy, even if they consider them some sort of a rival, like if it's a liberal company, but also in some cases it's because it's on a recorded line, or they'll write down the statements that they get as a result of telling that person that they're writing a story on them. And so it's done for a multitude of reasons, but it's an advance notice. And that's what I would assume is happening right here, is Melania, and obviously by extension Donald Trump then, got some sort of an advance notice from some sort of a company, some sort of a media company, that there was going to be a story being put out about Melania. She's had a movie come out recently. I think she's doing a book or something like that. So there is some attention around her still as well. But that's what I think is happening. But there's more to it, I think, possibly, potentially. Let me say potentially, because I'm not the conspiracy kind of a guy. This is not a conspiracy channel necessarily. But I wrote this on my X, and I said, the timing of all of this is interesting. And that's where I bring you back to, remember what Tucker said about Israel and blackmail, right? Let's not just completely disregard the fact that, like he said, the most jarring example of blackmail occurred in the 90s. Israel used recordings of a Bill Clinton-Monica Lewinsky phone sex session as leverage to pressure Clinton into releasing convicted spy Jonathan Pollard from prison. It really happened. They're willing to blackmail families of powerful people, presidents, etc. So understand that. And that is true. I mean, the USS Liberty, you got to read about that too, and why Israel struck that ship. This is another example that Tucker's talking about. And then I look at Melania, who doesn't like these public appearances. She's never really done anything out of the blue like this before. And Epstein, she's talking about Epstein. And it's incriminating, or potentially, I wouldn't say incriminating, but it's potentially controversial, and it's a poor look for her if something's going to come out like this and she doesn't get out in front of it. It's potentially damaging to her image, what could potentially be coming out. And it's Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein. Hopefully you're connecting the dots by now, but if you're not, these were my thoughts on this. I wrote this morning. I was a little sleep deprived, so hopefully it was as fluid written out as it was in my mind when I wrote it. But I said, think about this. The First Lady of the United States, Melania Trump, gives a seemingly random and quite honestly very uncharacteristic speech and public appearance to announce she was not friends with Jeffrey Epstein and was not introduced to Donald Trump through him. What's going on in the world right now that would make her possibly feel the need to do this? Typically, when a news story is about to run something on someone, they'll often give that person a phone call as both a heads up and to sometimes allow for personal statements to be made and added into the story. The topic of Epstein is a topic Trump has been seeking to avoid since last May, and according to some reports, President Trump wasn't even aware that Melania was about to be delivering these remarks publicly. So why would this be happening now? When it comes to foreign governments, the foreign lobbies, special interest groups, and donors, etc., we all know about the carrot, parentheses, the reward for doing what they want. But way less people focus on the stick, parentheses, the incentive, oftentimes one backed with a threat of something. Epstein and his island likely served as the stick in these operations. And I've covered that at length here. It's all about putting wealthy, powerful people in incriminating positions for future blackmail purposes, to serve as the stick. That's what the Epstein Island almost assuredly was. the blackmail that could lead to a lot of problems for people and would certainly make many wealthy and powerful people feel very inclined to do what they're told when called upon. The Iran war is not going well at all. Anyone who's reading in between the lines knows this. Iran has been severely underestimated by both the US and Israel, and now Iran is using the Strait of Hormuz as leverage in order to force President Trump to make a decision between telling Israel no and the strait and therefore global economy being restored and being opened again, or Trump can tell Israel yes and go all out war. The right logical answer right now is obvious for Trump, but that's a problem for Israel because they've bet almost everything on Iranian regime change and total destabilization of the country for their own future benefit. Worse yet, they were likely counting on being able to annex a large portion of South Lebanon while everyone was distracted with Iran. But because the Pakistani prime minister, alongside Iran, wanted a ceasefire deal with both the US and Iran, and in Lebanon and Israel included in the peace deal, Trump is now in a position where he likely feels the need to tell Israel no. And for Israel, this is unacceptable and outrageous, of course. Cue the stick. Epstein Island was all about this. It was all about incentivizing people to do the bidding of the intelligence communities and possibly of foreign countries by extension, like Israel. I firmly believe that there's possibly and probably a strong connection between Mossad and the CIA. And I think Jeffrey Epstein was possibly a double agent working for both communities. That's my belief. And I think there's a lot of evidence of that in the Epstein files, or a lot that at least points to that. Epstein's photographed wearing an IDF sweater, okay? There's numerous email exchanges of people calling him a super smart guy because he's Jewish. There's emails of Epstein using the term goy to describe us and making fun of us for believing in all kinds of nonsense that's happening in the world when it comes to the news, and how us goyim, we eat it up, you know? So that's what's in those files. And you can search those for yourself on the official.gov website. And we've only gotten half of it, by the way. But the carrot and the stick will always be used by the intelligence communities, and we see them be used by Israel, in my opinion. I think the writing's on the wall. So I'm not trying to say for sure what's happening here, but I did even end this by saying I'm not saying for sure what's happening. I'm just pondering a little bit and wondering. Because the timing of this is absurd. And it's because, first, she's Donald Trump's husband, and therefore knows that her husband is trying to avoid the topic of Jeffrey Epstein. He's trying to avoid it. This much should be clear to anyone. It started in May. He called it a hoax. Ironically, he then says Alex Jones deserved to lose his fortune for calling the Sandy Hook victims and that circumstance a hoax. He calls Epstein Island a hoax. Like he's the same person. He's worse, in all honesty, now at this point. But he called it a hoax in May, and he just kept up with that rhetoric until eventually he was humiliatingly forced to sign the Epstein Files Transparency Act that was nearly unanimously supported in Congress and in the Senate. That's the only reason we've gotten what we've gotten. Trump, if it were up to Trump exclusively, and if he thought he could have vetoed anything or halted the process, he would have. And I've long spoken on this channel about the fact that I've taken a look at all of the Epstein files thus far, and I've made the prediction thus far, and I still stand by it. I don't think Trump himself is criminally implicated. I actually heard Anna Kasparian, with radically different views from me on the Young Turks. She's even kind of said that there's a good chance he's not criminally implicated. But the problem is not Trump himself being criminally implicated. The problem is, in the words of Speaker Mike Johnson himself, when the Epstein Files Transparency Act was heading to the president's desk, and Mike Johnson was trembling over it, he said, the problem is this will shatter our institutions. The releasing of the Epstein files will not, this is not a direct quote, but this is literally essentially what he said. It will shatter our institutions and political systems as we know it. To which, of course, the American people always respond, good. But that's what Epstein is. It's the stick, because it was around for long enough to have put all kinds of wealthy, powerful people in really tough, incriminating appearing situations, really tough, poorly perceived situations. All these photographs. All it takes, you've seen this, all it takes for people is for a name to be mentioned in the files and people go, oh my God, he was a pedo. Enough photographs and, oh my God, he was a pedo. Did you see the photograph? He was a pedo. And that's the incentive oftentimes for people who want to preserve their image because they understand how important perception is to reality. So coincidentally, to bring it all back, coincidentally, the Iran war not going nearly as well as it should be by American standards. Iran severely underestimated. Iran going scorched earth on all of its neighbors and weaponizing the closure of the Strait of Hormuz to gain enough leverage to now be treated as sort of an equal power when it comes to the negotiation table now. And as a result of that, now demanding that Trump gets Israel in check if we want the Strait of Hormuz opened. Essentially, the demand is if Israel doesn't stop bombing South Lebanon and attacking our Hezbollah proxy group, our allies, this is Iran saying this, of course, we will close the Strait of Hormuz again. And there really isn't anything Trump can do about that. And I'm going to cover all this a little bit later. I'm going to break down the Iran war update more in detail for the final segment of this show. But understand that that puts Trump in the position now of having to tell Israel no or yes. And Israel already has determined what they want out of this. So they're already in their position. They go into South Lebanon. They strike South Lebanon with 100 bombs in 10 minutes. The second they learn about this peace treaty, as I predicted they would on this channel the day before, by the way. Easy read. It's literally a historical pattern with Israel. And so now Trump is in this position. He has to decide. Melania comes out and says, I was not involved with Jeffrey Epstein. I wasn't his friend. I didn't meet Trump because of him, which implies some news agency is about to do a report and release a report on her. Epstein Island, the stick, the timing. Hopefully people are understanding what I'm getting at here and why I'm thinking this way. I am not here to say that this is facts. I'm not even here to say that this is potentially a good Alex Jones blueprint level conspiracy theory. But my mind instantly went there this morning. Granted, I was sleep deprived. But when I'm sleep deprived, I come up with my best ideas sometimes, okay? And then I go to sleep and I sleep on it to wake up and rethink it and go, was that just sleep deprivation stupidity, or was I actually onto something in a moment of excellent lucidity? And honestly, I woke up and I said, no, there might be something there, and I'm going to share this, and maybe it's completely wrong. We'll never know either way, which is the brilliance of it. So I can share this. You can never tell me I was wrong because they'll never admit it anyway, so it doesn't even matter. But the timing is interesting. So, and I wanted to say that because Tucker Carlson's statement today, after I made this post on X, he's talking about blackmail and extreme pressure that is applied on people when it comes to fulfilling the will of foreign governments like Israel, mostly Israel, to be honest with you. All right. Take a look at some of your guys' chats. I don't want to neglect the chat too long again. So, what are you guys having to say about it down here? Eaton Maya says, God's promise was to Abraham and not Jacob, and that was taken away from them and given to another, Christians, to bear fruit as the continuation of Abraham's branch. We were grafted. Yes, Eaton Myas, yes. I still believe that there's a chance, obviously, for Jewish people to accept Christ as their Savior and therefore still be under God's current covenant. But we have to recognize that the covenant did change. I believe that. I believe the covenant had to change because Christ descended to earth and was ultimately rejected by his own people because they couldn't actually handle who he was. That's the old saying, back when Christ first came to earth, they were expecting a lion, but they got a lamb. And now many Christians, they treat Christ as a lamb, but we are in fact waiting for a lion to return. And they were unsatisfied with that, so they rejected him and they killed him. At least, of course, unless you listen to Rabbi Shmuley, who on Easter said, well, it was actually the Romans that killed Jesus, and the Jews, they had nothing to do with it. Okay, thank you, Rabbi Shmuley. But yeah, that's so true. And so the covenant had to change. It had to change based off of God's own people and their reaction to their Savior. And so the Gentiles had to be grafted onto the tree, and the church became an extension of Israel. The church is Israel for the most part. Jews are still welcome in that covenant, but most of them aren't a part of it because they literally don't believe in Christ as the Messiah Savior. And that's the problem with them. Bill Button says, "Oh, I definitely gave him a thumbs down because his head's far in his ass." Well, when you have an ass as nice as mine, there's no place you'd rather put it. And I know you, I know Bill Button, you would like to have your head there too. But unfortunately for you, I am a straight man, so the answer is no. Why is Bill being kicked out though? Hold on a second. Hold on, guys, moderators, hold on a second. This is not a power trip, okay? He's not spamming. Hold on a second here. I don't mind the chat. It's fine. I just, listen, repetitive spam. The same 3 words in a sentence 3 times in chat, tell them they're spamming and warn them. If they do it again, they're out. I don't care what they have to say. I mean, I'll read it even sometimes. And I know, I understand from a chatter's perspective, especially if you're a supporter. Oh, you timed them out for 10 seconds? That's fine too, by the way. That's actually sometimes better, depending. Time them out, warn them. If they don't listen, then ban them. It's a 47-year war, dumbass, says Greg Wolpert. Okay. I see chat is as brain dead as always. You didn't kick him out at all? Okay, thank you. Good. Yeah, no power tripping, guys. No power tripping. Let them speak. Charlene England says, that is so gross, dude. What are you talking about? Your ass and a man wanting it. That's just how it is. It's not my fault. It says nothing about me. It just says everything about that guy, Talking about... Charlene. Oh, Charlene. Oh, my God. Thank you. Charlene says, you being straight, we're talking about politicians, not your ass. Thank you, Charlene, for telling me what I'm talking about on my fucking show. Thank you for that. I'll talk about whatever I want. I'll talk about my ass for the next 10 minutes, and you'll sit there and you'll like it. You'll even like the stream and subscribe, and you'll donate a super chat if I tell you to. You don't own me. I own you. Get it right. You're the Goyim. Kathy Morgan says, I think you're the first person that actually put everything together that makes sense. All I had were parts and pieces, so thanks for straightening it out. Thank you, Kathy Morgan. I appreciate that. See, more chats like that. Where are those chats? Where are the chats that are recognizing this and the work involved into connecting the dots here? Thank you, Kathy. Seriously, I appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already and like the stream. Double tap your phone or find that thumbs up button. It really does help the stream perform well in the algorithm. Israel lost miserably, says Inhuman Society. Israel and the U.S. right now has, in my opinion, they've pretty much done a terrible job over there with Iran. Lifeguard, my moderator, says, something is happening. I can't believe they've held on to something like this if there's anything. And it could be AI finally getting up to speed. What's that in context of? Epstein has done untold damage. We'll never know the extent. That's probably true. Hussein says, Netanyahu may be the next USA president. No. All right. He probably does have a great ass. Thanks, Eden. Thank you. Hey, Cindilla 2000, welcome. Welcome, Abraham. All right. So that's all of that. Now, into this Iran war, right? Because I've already stated that things are not going well with the Iran war. Israel specifically, there's a lot of news to cover on Israel and how, in all honesty, Israel is losing a lot of popularity from a global standpoint here. Geopolitically, Israel's actually increasingly getting itself in more trouble. I've covered this before about how NATO is starting to turn their back on the U.S. now, and how, honestly, we should have done that to them last fall. We should have left NATO a long time ago on our terms, and now it's not our terms, and even worse, we've messed up that region so much by dropping bombs on Tehran, which caused them to close the Strait of Hormuz, that now it's NATO that doesn't like us as much anymore, and now, diplomatically, we have a lot of struggles ahead. But with Israel, it's even worse, because the European countries are beginning to rally together against Israel. And Giorgia Meloni of Italy has been one of the prominent people outspoken about this. She wants possibly sanctions imposed on Israel for their acts in Gaza, as well as now Lebanon. So Giorgia Meloni's been speaking out about this. And now, just in today, this morning, Spain has thrown their hat into the ring of condemning Israel's actions. The Spain Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, has officially called for the European Union to suspend its trade agreement with Israel. And so Spain's joining in now, and we're seeing this. We're seeing Poland has already made some stances on this. France has spoken out against Israel in the past as well, and other smaller countries are starting to now publicly condemn Israel for what's happening currently in the Middle East and for what they've been doing with Gaza as well. Now here's the Spain Prime Minister speaking. This is Prime Minister Sanchez actually speaking. I think it's not translated verbally, but I can read the translation in the caption for you.
Una Europa que sea firme en la defensa del derecho internacional y de un orden global basado en reglas.
Okay, yeah, so it's not translated verbally, but it says, let us not allow a new Gaza in Lebanon. Europe must act coherently if it wants the rest of the world to support us. That's why yesterday I proposed we must suspend the association agreement with Israel. And he also had this to say. He said, we are ready to move forward with a common European army, not in 10 years or in 2, but now, as soon as tomorrow. That much I actually kind of doubt, in all honesty. But we'll see. That would actually be wonderful. That could give the U.S. an opportunity to take an exit from NATO if they finally wake up and do this. Trump, of course, has actually threatened to deliberately start withdrawing our soldiers from the military bases that we have established on the European front line, and to start pulling them away while Russia continues to attack Ukraine. And so Trump is actually playing hardball with NATO, which I'm not sure right now is actually the appropriate response. I would have loved this last fall, but right now I'm not so sure, actually, diplomatically, if this is actually a good strategy on Trump's part. It's certainly the predictable tactic, I should say, of President Donald Trump when it comes to this. He plays hardball, he rattles the cages. But because of what we've done now in the Middle East and how we've disrupted the global economy off of foolish actions where we've underestimated Iran and what their response would be and what this outcome would be, NATO's not going to be the one begging as much, in my opinion. The idea would have been to have done this last fall when NATO would have been on the receiving end of it and would have been in a position where they would have been possibly at our mercy more. It's different now. We've gone in there and we've disrupted that region because of our actions, and that have consequently led to Iran going scorched earth, striking Middle Eastern neighbors and closing the Strait of Hormuz. So it's different. You have to understand that. So I'm not so sure if that's even a great strategy at this point in time. Now, Bibi Netanyahu, though, has responded. He responded to Spain and the Prime Minister's statement here. This is going to be not in English, but it has English captions, so I'll read them out loud to you as it's being said. Jeez, hold on, that's probably too loud even for the stream. Tone that down a little bit. He says, Israel will not remain silent in the face of those... Hold on, it's going so fast, my God. Israel will not remain silent in the face of those who attacked us. Spain has defamed our heroes, the soldiers of the IDF, the soldiers of the most moral army in the world. Therefore, I have instructed today to remove Spain's representatives from the coordination center. After Spain has chosen repeatedly to stand against Israel. Those who attack the state of Israel instead of terrorist regimes will not be our partners. Regarding the future of the region, I am not willing to tolerate this hypocrisy and hostility. I do not intend to allow any country to wage a diplomatic war against us without paying an immediate price. So he's responded, and this is what's happening. We're seeing this happen more and more now to Israel. And by extension, you can expect that the countries, these allies, NATO, Europe, etc., who I've already said aren't really our allies anyway. But right now we're in a tricky circumstance. So we can't actually afford, in my opinion, playing his hardball as Trump probably wants to do with NATO right now while we've created this mess. So now we're on the back step. And by extension, we are working with Israel. And so as a result of that, we could find ourselves being isolated much quicker and not on our terms by continuing to support Israel and their efforts in the Middle East. And this is something to understand here. This also came in today. Not only is this all happening, but Israel's already making it clear that they're dissatisfied with the results. So reports have come in from Israeli news, and it says that Israel says the new Iranian regime is more extreme than its predecessor. Who could have predicted that? Oh, gee, I don't know. On this channel, where I said it's not regime change, because the regime is still intact, and it will still stay intact. And when you cut the head off the Hydra, 2 more appear, and they're usually younger and more radicalized as a result. Wow, go figure. Israel says the new Iranian regime is more extreme. And do you think Israel's happy about that and willing to let all bygones be bygones in a peace deal to be established now on Saturday? You think that's how that's going to play out? And even if it does, you think it'll be a long-term peace deal? Also, this is what Trump had to say here too. So in regards to that peace deal that's playing out Saturday now, and what's supposed to have been taking place all week long under this ceasefire extension of 2 weeks, this is what Trump had to say about Iran when he was asked. He was asked this question: is this a one and done talk, or are you open to more talks after this?
I don't know. I can't tell you. I have to see what happens tomorrow. They've been talking for 47 years with other presidents, and we're not doing much talking.
We're not doing much talking. Now, why could that be? Why is Iran doing that much? Why are they not doing a lot of talking with President Trump in the United States? Ask yourself that. And here's the reason why. Despite what Trump had to say on Truth Social today, by the way, which, of course, he said, the Iranians don't seem to realize they have no cards other than a short-term extortion of the world by using international waterways. The only reason they are alive today is to negotiate President Donald J. Trump. That was 10 hours ago on Truth Social. Despite that, I've covered this already at length on this channel. And the New York Times has published an article saying as much as well. With Iran setting limits, the Strait of Hormuz remains thorny politically. Even after a ceasefire, Iran is keeping a chokehold on traffic, forcing countries to cut deals that could put them at odds with the U.S. If you've been watching me go live on this channel for the past 2 months now, plus, this is episode 63, if you've been watching me, you've understood that I've broken this down now strategically on why the U.S. is coming up short in this region. It's not because our military is inferior. It's not actually. But it's because, first of all, we made the grave mistake of underestimating an enemy. And therefore, we went in completely unprepared, in my opinion, for the results that came, which is, of course, also been acknowledged by Pete Hegseth, who freely admitted that they thought it was a possibility that Iran would go scorched earth and start indiscriminately striking all of their neighboring Middle Eastern neighbors. Right? Pete Hegseth admitted, well, we thought it was possible, but we didn't think it was likely. Well, they did. And not only did they do that, but they knew exactly where to strike and how to make it painful for everyone. This is like the ultimate Iran gets stabbed, and before they die, they'll stab you back too, so you can die together. It's scorched earth. And essentially, it's basically Iran has threatened the peace and well-being of all their neighboring allies, well, not allies, neighboring Middle Eastern countries, neighbors. And you have to understand, Trump, this is a diplomatic nightmare for Trump. I broke this down week 1. I don't know how our U.S. government failed to recognize this, but Trump went on tours in the Middle East that I covered on this channel, by the way. He went on tours last year, racking up pledged investments in the trillions of dollars from some of these Arab allies now. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, right? He traveled to these countries, Trump. He made deals with these countries. And now, because Israel insisted we do so, Trump has jeopardized all of that by aggressively and foolishly waging war with Iran, something that a lot of other past presidents were smart enough to say no to. Because Iran going scorched earth has now damaged that region from just a perception standpoint. You take a city like Dubai, which is like a modern first world city in the Middle East, and it's advertised as a paradise in the Middle East. You look at it and it's like the Arabs there are so wealthy that they own exotic animals. They find ways to grow green grass in the desert. It is lavish. The buildings are beautiful. The architecture is a wonder there. Just Google the images. And this is supposed to be a paradise for the wealthiest of people to travel there on vacation or on work business meetings, etc. And it's supposed to be safe because Dubai's not supposed to be hated by anybody really. And so what Iran did was they sized that up and they go, Trump wants a good relation with them. And though we don't have a poor relation with them, we're bitter enemies necessarily and waging war with each other. If we start striking them, it applies diplomatic pressure on Trump to come up with a solution to this quicker, which of course gives Iran leverage. Because Dubai's reputation now is suffering and the perception of them being a safe paradise is in peril. It's honestly ruined, actually. It's actually ruined because these countries have already been suffering now because of Iran, but also because Trump instigated it by attacking Iran. And so that's the leverage. That's part of the leverage that Trump doesn't have. And the simple understanding you have to come to, you have to know this when it comes to war. The side that is willing to go the furthest, the side that's willing to be the most extreme, oftentimes wins. It's not a matter of, believe it or not, yes, there's good and evil. I believe that. And I love the movies where it's like, he who bears the cross of Christ cannot be defeated. I believe that, oftentimes. The problem is, I don't believe we actually bear the cross of Christ doing this war in Israel's name, first and foremost. Secondly, oftentimes, in this physical world we live in, with physical world realm type laws, the side that's willing to go the most extreme does oftentimes win. That's just reality. And Iran is willing to go scorched earth, and we aren't. We can't. We believe in upholding international law at least a little bit more than they do. We violate it all the time too. And war crimes are committed on all fronts. But there is something there where it's more politically poisonous for Trump to be as extreme. He puts out a nuclear level post on Easter Sunday and loses tons of popularity over it. We all rage about it and we say this is disgusting, right? Iran doesn't have that problem. They are religious zealots. Their regime is full of religious zealots who are dedicated to their cause. And they're not as concerned about public perception there because they rule more with an iron fist. So they go to the greater extreme than we do. And that's really part of the leverage and part of the issue. And then the other part of the issue, of course, is the Strait of Hormuz, which for some reason Pete Hegseth didn't calculate would be a problem. But it is. And I've covered why, and I'll briefly explain why again. Though we have a superior military, I believe that. We are, first of all, up against their defensive advantage, their terrain and geographical advantage. They have the home field advantage, and they've invested wiser in more updated military technology, in all honesty. And not that it's better technology, but just they've figured out what future warfare would be somehow before we did to some extent. We're using massive, powerful aircraft carriers, which look really cool and are definitely devastating. And we're using all kinds of naval vessels and our Air Force, and we have amphibious vehicles and boots on the ground ready to go, which is political poison, but they're there nonetheless. What did Iran do? Iran recognized they're not trying to expand. They just recognize they need to hold their ground and defend their lands. So Iran recognized the coming conflict and they went all in on ballistic missile investment and drones. Drones. And when you understand what this is and what this means, it means we send in millions of dollars of military equipment, and all it takes is for anywhere between sometimes $600 on the cheap end, but that's more for boots on the ground warfare. One $50,000 drone flies in and detonates and blows up and takes out millions of dollars of military equipment. And for some reason, America fell behind on this, mainly because we're not in an engaged war the same way that Russia is with Ukraine. And Iran is allied with Russia. And Iran's oil rich. And there's an incentive for Russia and China to help Iran and honestly start treating them as the ultimate giant proxy to take out their aggressions on the United States using Iran. And so Iran buys all kinds of equipment. We know Russia and China are helping them in various different ways with equipment, technology, etc. Russia's been involved in a Ukraine war for something to the effect of 4 years now. And that war has, we've seen large developments and advancements in drone warfare because both those countries are using them more and more. And so as a result of that, Russia has very advanced drones now. And I believe probably Iran is not only just producing their own drones that are buried deep, the factories of which are buried deep in the mountains of Iran and therefore are hard to bomb from the skies or from the seas. But on top of that, I believe, and I think I'm very rightfully believing this, that Russia's sending them stuff without a doubt. There's no reason for them not to. And these drones, again, $50,000 oftentimes, will just one drone fly into the side of the ship, detonate, boom, massive hole in the ship. The ship now has to be pulled out of the region. The Gerald R. Ford, it was a 30-hour-long laundry room fire. Okay, that's the official story. But let's just say, one drone, boom, side of the ship detonates. Now this massive ship is taken out by a $50,000 piece of equipment. And so Iran is ready, and it's hard. We don't have the right answers for this. Ukraine, actually, Volodymyr Zelensky just posted on his X last night that they are now developing this technology and practicing it of using fighter jets to shoot drones out of the sky. So it is happening. The technology is being developed, but we don't have a great answer for drone warfare, and it's that simple. It's as simple as, first and foremost, I've explained this too, it's as simple as Iran just threatening to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. That in and of itself will be taken seriously because other countries will tell their oil tankers to stop passing through. They don't want to lose those. They don't want to pay that price. So the oil tankers now sit. And they assume that, well, there's possibly mines in the Strait of Hormuz, and they also assume they're going to use ballistic missiles and or drones to take out the oil tankers if they try to pass through. So all it really takes is the threat of shutting down the strait. That's good enough, actually. And America, it's on us. The standard of victory for Iran is to make threats and to simply survive and outlast us. That's it. For America, the standard is way higher. We must definitively prove that we can not only get the Strait of Hormuz reopened, but that we can make it safe for all ships to pass through again. And we can't do that. And that's the problem. And that's where Iran has the leverage. And they are using that leverage, as I explained, to force Trump now to make a very serious decision. And that's why I'm waiting anxiously to see how these peace talks go in Pakistan tomorrow, because they are using all of this as their leverage to say, basically, you can't actually definitively beat us. And though you can continually bomb us and hurt us, we can survive. At least some of us can. We can keep surviving. We're confident we can outlast you. And we're confident that our tactics and our strategy are more than enough to maintain the leverage that we have to force you to view us, the IRGC, as an equal negotiating representative at the table. And that's kind of what's happening here. So Trump says they don't have the cards, but in truth, they do have some of the cards. They have more of the cards than we would have liked. And we would have preferred they didn't figure that out, but they knew about it all along, and they've been ready for this. They've been ready to do this. And so that's going to whittle us down on breathing room when it comes to demands. This will not be typical U.S. diplomacy, in my opinion. This will not be, here's our list of demands, and we will annihilate you if you don't follow through. This will have to be, and this is what the U.S. is sadly not used to, this will have to be, to some extent, actual diplomacy and actual negotiation. Because Iran's answer to us threatening to annihilate them is simply, okay, fine, bet. We'll also launch everything we have at Israel and all of the neighboring countries. They've already threatened to take out desalination plants in the Middle East, which means that all of our Middle Eastern partners and allies will wind up actually going thirsty and possibly dying. Because there's not, if you haven't noticed, in the Middle East, there's not a whole great deal of fresh water there. So the desalination is the process of making ocean water drinkable. And they've threatened to take all out. They've threatened to take out power plants, liquid natural gas, oil, which will ruin the global economy and cause a global economic recession. This is the power Iran has, not to definitively beat us while maintaining their country and ensuring their country continues to succeed and thrive. They have the power of saying, if things are going to be devastated, if you're going to devastate us and decimate us, We can't do anything about that. We'll just make sure we go out ensuring that the entire region is destroyed as well, which does hurt us. And it hurts us bad enough to where Trump has to walk on eggshells. Now, Trump has said, honestly, this was another clip of him outside the airfield there. The question was, what would a good deal look like for you? This is why Trump is now backtracking quite a bit on this deal, in all honesty. This was his answer.
What would a good deal look like for you? No nuclear weapon, number one. You know, I think it's already been regime change, but we never had that as a criteria.
Oh.
No.
We never had regime change as a criteria, he now says. Interesting. Wow, that's not what I was under the impression of. And that's certainly not what Israel's under the impression of, but...
Nuclear weapon, that's 99% of it.
No nuclear weapon, that's 99% of it. And so that's where we're going to be whittled down to. With the Strait of Hormuz, I'm very curious to see how that plays out, because Iran is insistent on charging a toll for oil tankers to pass through. And we've seen a lot of back and forth. We've seen a lot of, I guess, tacoing, in all honesty. Trump was all for it. And I think Trump has been told how weak that makes America look. Understand something. It's because if Iran walks away from this with complete control of the Strait of Hormuz, and they walk away being able to now charge oil tankers for safe passage, a toll in international waters, that is a definitive loss for America. And the only country that wouldn't recognize that, of course, would be us. And the MAGA cheerleaders would say, wow, we sure showed them. Every other country literally would look at that and go, what in the fuck just happened? Because February 27th and before, that passage was completely free to pass through. Iran was not charging anything. So if we walk away and they're now charging $2 million tolls, that's an L for America. But where is this going to go? How are they going to negotiate this at this point? Because Iran has made it clear since week one of the strikes, they've made it clear that they would vow to choke the Strait of Hormuz and charge naval vessels money to pass through it. And they vowed that they would do that no matter what the U.S. does from here on out. That was their week one solemn promise. And that's why Trump is saying 99% of it is a nuclear weapon. It's because I think he recognizes, and I'm not completely convinced this is true, by the way, yet, but I think he's convinced that this is very likely going to be true, that Iran in some way, shape, or form will push on with this because they recognize it as the key foundational leverage that they have against us and Israel, not just now, honestly, but also in the future, and they may as well profit economically off of it. And I think Trump recognizes that, and I think he recognizes it's an uphill battle, not one that can't be won necessarily. I'm not 100% convinced that we can't work out a deal where Iran guarantees safe and free passage through the Hormuz Strait again. But I think there's a more likely chance that we actually have to allow them to charge for that. I don't see how otherwise this plays out. Because what the United States wants, you have to understand our terms and how absurd it is objectively. Maybe you can justify it for being the greater good, but Iran won't see it that way. And this is where most people have a problem recognizing strategy and understanding geopolitics. They only look at it through the lens of their country or through the lens of what the media tells them to. Look at it through the lens of Iran. Look at it through the lens of you're the leader of an entire country full of 92 million people and some other country that's more powerful than you, but not more powerful, potentially not powerful enough to utterly annihilate you and wipe you off the face of the map. They come to you and they say, no nuclear enrichment. You're not allowed to have that. Your neighbor, who's our ally, Israel, they already have nuclear power, though, but you can't develop that. Also, we don't like the fact that you have all of these ballistic missiles, which you're able to effectively use for counterstrike measures and definitely as defensive deterrents. So no more ballistic missile production. And on top of that, you must keep a maximum limit of ballistic missiles that we determine, and it's going to be a very low threshold. Furthermore, on top of that, the Strait of Hormuz, you must reopen that and keep it open no matter what. The strait that is in your waterways. It's international waters, but it's yours. That's what we insist and demand upon, and in return, we will do essentially nothing. These are our demands. If you're a leader, you're not agreeing to that. You're just not, objectively. But that's essentially what we want. And then what Iran wants if they get any of that, it becomes apparent if, in them doing so and achieving any of that, that America has lost. And that ruins our reputation and damages our military's credibility. And this is the problem that Trump is now in. And it's why he should have never gotten involved. Trump also went on to say now he's changed his mind, because originally he didn't really address the problem with them charging for the Strait of Hormuz. And then beyond that, he actually was on record even saying that maybe the U.S. could profit off of it too, which was extremely laughable and embarrassing, actually, because all the Persian countries immediately pretty much responded with, no, the U.S. will not be profiting if Iran manages to hold on to the Strait of Hormuz and charge tolls. The U.S. will not be profiting as well, because we don't have, it's just not geographically under our control. So with that being said, now Trump has officially declared today this. He made this statement.
You're not going to let them toll the strait, are you? It's international.
No, we're not going to let that. It's international water. If they're doing that, nobody knows if they're doing that, but if they're doing that, we're not going to let that happen.
We're not going to let them toll the Strait of Hormuz. That's now his official stance as of this afternoon at 5 p.m. So now, of course, he's realized how bad this looks. So it's now, well, we're not going to let them toll it. How are we going to stop them from tolling it, though? That's the question. That's actually the question. How do you stop that? So, and he knows how tricky this is. This is another report that came in. I'm really skeptical on the credibility of it, especially based off the headline. Let's not get to a point where we're so critical of Trump that we develop TDS like the liberals. So I'm skeptical of this. It doesn't seem like Trump, but the credibility lies in the truth behind the headline. So the headline of this article is, Trump begged foreign leaders like a dog to help him out of Iran jam, according to a DC insider. Yeah, I'm skeptical of the headline there, but I will say that the truth is there. And this is why Trump was calling on our NATO allies to send their ships, their Navy and soldiers to the Strait of Hormuz. Because that reinforces, first of all, it reinforces the idea of what I've been saying here. But again, it exposes the truth of the matter. That region is not going to be reopened by our U.S. military alone, in my opinion. And the fact that Trump had to ask our NATO allies, who he routinely takes a dump on, literally shits on them and says they're not pulling their fair share, they're pathetic. All of a sudden, it's, well, NATO's supposed to be helping us. Where's NATO? We need their naval vessels. It's actually their problem, the Strait of Hormuz. I understand it was completely open and fair and free for everyone, including us, to pass through. But you know what? Israel called and we have to answer them. So we struck Iran. They closed it off. Now it's really Europe's problem, honestly. So they should be doing more of the work anyway. And Europe takes a step back and they sit down objectively and they say, what a fucking asshole. Honestly, that's how I would feel personally. So apparently he's been begging them for help. I don't know if begging's the right word, but the truth is, yes, he very likely is feeling like he needs NATO's help. And they're not willing to grant it. They're actually condemning Israel. They're doing the opposite, as I highlighted earlier with the Spain prime minister. So furthermore, more news came in this afternoon that a ceasefire negotiation between Israel and Lebanon is officially going to be held now at the U.S. State Department in Washington, as per Axios. But beyond that, Israel quickly already made a statement on their Channel 12 News. I found this on their, you can go on their I-24 News and N12 News websites, by the way, to read these articles for yourself. You'll find Israel media is actually super honest about their intentions. It's actually kind of refreshing, while simultaneously being scary sometimes. But according to their 12 News, it says Israel does not have high expectations for successful negotiations with Lebanon. Nevertheless, they will be there. And so you can see Trump's already been trying to push Israel for the negotiations because Iran has leveraged Trump into the position now to essentially be the guy that now negotiates the Israel-Lebanon war for Iran. This is how, in my opinion, objectively, Iran has been pretty crafty with this. They've been pretty crafty. They've been definitely underestimated. Definitely. And so Israel, of course, doesn't want peace. And so that's why they're already saying, well, we don't have high expectations for that. They don't want peace. Their goal is much different. But they're being forced to at least put on the appearance of attempting to broker peace because of the Strait of Hormuz. And again, Melania Trump talking about Epstein. I talked about that earlier. That might be playing a part here. Who's telling these media companies about this, and why are they deciding possibly now to put out a report on Melania Trump and her ties with Jeffrey Epstein? Ask yourself that. Now, here's the last thing I want to talk about. Iran's not satisfied, right? They feel like Trump is not honoring their our end of the peace deal, and Trump feels vice versa in some way, shape, or form. But what covered here is Lebanon was originally intended to be part of the deal of the ceasefire. Lebanon and Israel ceasefire, along with U.S., Israel, Iran ceasefire. And Trump had originally agreed to that. That was the Prime Minister of Pakistan's original request. Lebanon was included. All of Iran's allies were included in that request. Trump agrees. Pakistan puts out another statement from their prime minister saying thank you so much, and once again reiterates thank you so much for the ceasefire with Iran and with Lebanon. All of a sudden, Israel's furious at this. According to reports, they were called last second and basically just told this was the reality now, which even though they're the junior partner without any real say, they don't feel like that's the case. They feel like they're in charge here. So they were furious. They make a statement. I covered it live when it was happening. I said Israel will be furious about this, and I said they're the wild card. Wouldn't be surprised if they go scorched earth and try to sabotage peace deals. Fast forward 24 hours later, I'm live again, telling you how right I was as usual. 100 bombing runs, or 100 bombs go off in Lebanon in under 10 minutes from Israeli strikes, because Israel puts out the statement Lebanon's not part of that deal. Despite the fact that publicly we see two separate statements before and after Trump accepts it from the Prime Minister of Pakistan pleading for not just a ceasefire between the U.S. and Iran, but for a ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon that Trump agreed to. So yes, Lebanon was part of the deal that Trump agreed to. But Israel bombs Lebanon 100 times in 10 minutes. They say Lebanon's not part of the deal. And the next day, Trump wakes up essentially and goes, yeah, Lebanon's not part of that deal. We see how this plays out. We see very blatantly, it's in front of your eyes how it's happening. And so no side is okay with this. Israel and Lebanon have been bombing each other like crazy. I follow a page that updates for every incident. They're putting out a new post every 7 minutes on X. They're going crazy right now, bombing each other left and right. Drones, missiles, bombing runs, you name it. Apartments are just falling everywhere. And Hezbollah is going scorched earth. They've officially started bombing Israel's northern civilian cities as of today, because Israel took out several apartment complexes in their capital city after the ceasefire deal was announced, not even 12 hours later. So they're going scorched earth with each other. They're not stopping. And Iran was insistent that this must stop. So they're not satisfied. Trump's not satisfied. Trump doesn't want any of the 10-point proposals, basically, that Iran offered. And as a result of that, Iran now has basically reclosed the Strait of Hormuz for all intensive purposes. And they did allow some more ships to pass through today, but they were all Iranian ships or Iranian allied ships. So Trump calls them dishonorable and disingenuous, and basically says, well, the Strait of Hormuz must be reopened. They're not allowed to charge tolls, and we must get their enriched uranium. Now, Iran is trolling Trump, in my opinion. This is a troll, because this article today came out, and it says just in, and this was put out literally an hour and a half before I went live here. It was put out at 7:45 p.m. Just in, Iran's been this is their statement now on the Strait of Hormuz, and in my opinion, this is a troll. Iran's been unable to quickly open the Strait of Hormuz to more shipping traffic because it cannot locate all of the mines it laid in the waterway, and now it lacks the capability to remove the mines anyway, says U.S. officials, according to the New York Times. That sounds like a troll, a halfway troll. Like, that's kind of like, oh, well, we'd like to open the Strait of Hormuz, but we actually did put mines in it, and now we can't find them. And even if we find them, we actually no longer have the capability to remove them. So Iran is playing hardball still. And they've come up with kind of this excuse now, in my opinion. This is an excuse. I'm not buying this at all. But this is an excuse to now strengthen or preemptively put out some sort of public perception there to manufacture outrage if peace talks tomorrow in Pakistan don't go well and we start striking Iran, and Trump will blame, of course, their treatment of the Strait of Hormuz and how they refuse to open it. He'll cite that as the main reason, or one of the main reasons, along with Pakistani peace deal tomorrow not going well. Now there will be, well, they said they can't remove all the mines. There will be this outrage over it. So, And it is a troll, though. It's kind of just like a bullshit excuse, in my opinion. I'm not buying that whatsoever. But that is the latest update from our U.S. officials and from Iran when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz. Well, it's not fully open because we can't find the mines that we laid. And even if we did, we couldn't remove them. That sounds like BS, but it is kind of funny, objectively. So that's where we're at. And that's what's happening. Everything that's going on right now. Now we're heading into peace talks tomorrow. Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, and J.D. Vance in Pakistan. And I saw videos already today of IRGC members. MB Ghalibaf has arrived. So we'll see how that goes. And, of course, I'll be going live tomorrow to cover that as well. So be sure to subscribe right now to American Advocates for more content like this. Make sure post notifications are turned on when you do. And like the stream if you haven't already. You can do that by double tapping your phone screen or finding that thumbs up button and liking it. I'll take a look at some of your guys' chats if you have anything to say. Bonds Cafe, this is not a TDS channel. I actually voted for Trump in 2024. Let's see. Gotta scroll up. Will the U.S. military follow orders to go ahead, says Ed Sir. Yes, they will. I'm sure some people would like to think that the military won't follow those orders, and some people would like to think that they'll defy Trump, but they won't. Absolutely not. The orders will be given, and the orders will be followed. Very, very rare in history to see soldiers collectively unite and disobey orders. I don't even know if I would want that to occur, even over this, to be honest with you. Ground beef is $8 a pound, says Lifeguard. Yeah, it's brutal. That's actually, I think that's technically more money than the average hourly minimum wage, the nation minimum wage now. Guess what isn't going to change no matter how much you people complain? Trump doing what he's doing, nothing will change for 3 more years. Well, actually, that's not true. Actually, Iran, Enris. And the reason why that's not true is because we can ultimately weaponize the midterm elections that are coming up this year and use those to work against Trump. And I advocate for that even as a social and fiscal conservative on this channel. I advocate for all Republicans to skip this election and vote whatsoever. Because then the Democrats will get in and they will slow down this administration and they will force it to a grinding halt. And that will change the projection of where everything is heading if that happens. Because Trump won't be able to get nearly as much done as he's done the last 2 years if the House all of a sudden, Congress, the House, legislation, if that is blue, Trump is now shackled essentially, and he finishes off his lame duck term here being able to do essentially nothing. Because a blue Congress will challenge this, and they'll impeach him over it, by the way. So that's not true, actually. Yes, Trump. I don't think Trump gets impeached out of office, but I also believe that it's not a net zero chance that he gets impeached either. I believe there's a chance that we could watch Trump be impeached out of office. It really does depend on how bad this Iran war continues to play out and how bad the midterms are for the Republicans this year. But overall, I would say it's at least a 65, 70% chance at least that Trump finishes off the 3 years. But if the midterms really sour this year, and let's say worst case scenario, they lose both chambers of Congress, Senate, and the House, Trump is done. He's not getting anything done. So yeah, a lot could change still. Lifeguard says the military-industrial complex is hungry for money. That's how Iran went simple. Yeah, it's true. My point is Trump doesn't need AIPAC money. Maybe he wanted it, but surely he knows the political implications, the liabilities. It makes no sense. Well, AIPAC money, officially AIPAC money can't go to Trump anyway because AIPAC gets involved with Congress. AIPAC deliberately funds Congress members, not presidential candidates. When it comes to Jewish donor money, look to the Adelson family, Miriam Adelson specifically. Candace Owens actually addressed that today. I didn't play that clip ultimately. I wound up deciding against it because it was a much longer clip. But she did address it. She says $100 million. I've seen more reports suggesting that she's kept donating and that Trump anywhere up to like $220 to $230 million received from Miriam Adelson, and she's an Israeli nationalist. And so it's not AIPAC money because Trump doesn't receive that as the president, not directly. But if you're looking for Jewish donor money trails, it's coming from the Adelson family and probably from a great deal of other areas, other sources, but not AIPAC, not directly. Lifeguard says, and the plans in Saudi are jeopardized by taking AIPAC money. See where I'm going? Yeah. See, well, this is true too, and this is again because our lawmakers are just too influenced by big money. The reason why our medicine sucks, big pharma. The reason why our food is poisoned, big agriculture. The reason why we're in foreign wars all the time, AIPAC money. Johnny says, how do you know? If so, why have they done so little for more than 30 days? I'm sorry, I don't remember in the context what I was saying when you asked that question. Kathy Morgan says, Trump changes his mind each time he gives a speech. That's because, first of all, I've covered this issue. Trump's a populist and not an ideologue. So he has no convictions, nothing to stand firm on. So he comes and goes with the wind. And then as a result of that, his administration and his cabinet official members and everybody around him, his advisors, have figured out you cater to his ego to get him to do what you want. So the combination of him being a populist combined with him being figured out when it comes to an ego standpoint from all of his advisors means we see him being pulled in multiple different ways, and he's constantly changing directions as a result of that. And then on top of that, he knows some of what's happening right now is bad, but he has no real long-term strategy. He's a good tactician, Trump. All the people saying he plays 4D chess are morons. He's not a chess player at all. He has no strategy, but he has good tactics, which essentially is to say he's good at winning battles, but oftentimes he wins those battles truthfully at the expense of the war. You can win battles and lose a war because of it. That's what happens with Trump. It's actually, ironically, the parallels between Trump and Israel are very, very similar. And I covered this as well. Israel constantly wins these battles at the expense of losing the wars that actually matter. And Trump does the same thing. Because there's no long-term plans in place. Trump is good in the moment of identifying. He has good instincts in the moment sometimes of identifying what the next best step is, but he never thinks 3, 4, 5 steps ahead, ever. At least it never seems that way. MAGA ain't fractured. You're the bozo, says RD Cravens. Are you Cravens? The United States of America should be collecting that insurance money, not Lloyd's of London. We provide security on the ocean. Okay. MAGA is not fractured because you're a bunch of fucking morons. Richard Garris. Yeah, unfortunately, that's true at this point. TDS now is for the people that still support Trump unquestionably. Trump is such a cuck, says Plop and Sloppies. Okay, great name. Blue says, why did the British Empire lose the reserve currency? It's so similar to what is happening now. We seem to be speedrunning losing the reserve currency. Yes, yes. And by the way, that's a big problem too, because you see these stupid economists, these modern day stupid economists talking about expenses. And I'll say something like, oh my God, $45 billion spent on the war. And they say, well, what does it matter? We can print more money. What you don't understand is if we lose global reserve currency and if we lose the petrodollar, et cetera, and all of a sudden our money's not worth anything, we can't borrow the same way anymore. Countries are not interested in buying our debt. And so everything pops. We will lose everything all at once. Everything pops. And then you're using a wheelbarrow to purchase bread. You are filling up a wheelbarrow at that point to buy a loaf of bread. So that's why. And modern economists are so stupid. They're so dumb. Bold as a Lion says, yes, and maybe this is the plan. Without the petrodollar, our currency isn't worth the paper it's printed on. See, I just said it. And does Israel care about that, by the way? No. Actually, I've explained this before as well. The ideal outcome for Israel right now, if everything was perfect for Israel, it would be us crushing Iran at the expense of our dollar and our blood, weakening Iran, and ruining the petrodollar, and then therefore ruining our stance in the global economy, which then forces the allies, our current allies, and those who are involved with our petrodollar and buying up our debt to look to China. Israel can then slowly take over that region over the next 10 to 20, 30 years, however long it takes, and they can become the world's emerging superpower that ultimately replaces us. They now control all the Middle Eastern oil, and if our economy is ruined and our country is in shambles, we would have only been a competitor to Israel in that circumstance anyway, because we sit on a lot of oil as well. Which would make us a competitor to Israel. But if our economy is in shambles and we're weakened beyond belief, we can now either be conquered, taken out, or just rendered irrelevant and left alone to suffer and whittle away, much like the old British Empire. And Israel now takes the spotlight. And do they help us in return for all the years of helping them? No, of course not. Now they look at the region, they have regional hegemony in the Middle East and all of the oil control of the Middle East, and they recognize the smarter plan, truthfully, is to strengthen ties with China and Russia, who rely on that region for oil. So they start selling more of that oil they now control as a result of Iran being taken out, Turkey presumably being taken out, Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, you name it. Israel believes that's all theirs in the future. They strengthen ties with China and Russia and treat them as the future business partners. And they leave America to remain irrelevant, because if we remain prominent and powerful, we're only a competitor to Israel. This is how power works in the world. And this is why helping Israel become a future superpower is absolutely foolish. It's naive, because it's under the assumption that Israel will obtain regional hegemony, become a superpower, and remain our greatest ally. What kind of fantasy land do these fucking idiots live in? It's very naive. Everything America has built since World War II is based on control of the reserve currency, and the DC has been impossibly irresponsible with it. Yep. Blue Link says, I've been thinking that Trump would try and implement some kind of currency that he could rug pull the American people on, then go off to the sunset on his own country, maybe Gaza. People are thinking that. I can't necessarily blame them. Don't invest in stupid shit if you see another Trump coin pop up. That is beyond dumb. So that's my advice there. Trump is enriching himself, though, actually, and that's actually undeniable. The currency trail literally points to that. Today, Trump posted world's most powerful reset. Is he hinting towards the Great Reset? People are speculating on that. Lifeguard says, I'm just a simple small business owner in the middle of nowhere. Maybe stability is too much to hope for. I don't know. My advice to everybody is, in all honesty, do your best to continue to succeed so you can insulate yourself from any downturn effects in our economy. So owning land would be a great thing. I've talked about this. The trend with the millennials, that it started with the millennials, and I know some Gen Z find it hokey, but the older Gen Z gets, the more you recognize that they also recognize the value in this, the homesteading trend. As corny as that may sound, owning land, being able to farm it and produce your own food will be very valuable in the future. Very valuable. Land is something that's just not negotiable. It's always valuable. So I think that's like the best direction for anybody to try and go into. And if anything, try to get connected with other farmers and landowners, because beyond that, networking is even more important. In your region, you develop a network. And this is, by the way, believe it or not, entire neighborhoods in America once upon a time used to work like this. Farmers would farm a crop or two or multiple crops depending on how big the farm was, and you would talk with your neighbors. You're growing raspberries? That's so cool. I'm growing strawberries. Mental note, end of season. Let's trade a little bit. I made strawberry jam. Here's raspberry jam. Oh, I'm making a strawberry pie tomorrow. Can I have some? Yes. Oh, you're growing carrots? Cool. I'm growing radishes. Mental note. I'm not kidding. I know this sounds corny, but in all honesty, this is the stuff that actually matters. At the end of the day, drinking water, a roof over your head, and food. And we've gotten so far away from that as a society now. We're so detached from it. We go and pick up a bell pepper at a grocery store and we buy it. Most people don't even know how to grow that. You take a pepper plant seed, you start it now in April, and by August you have peppers. People are detached from that. People now have digital currency. They don't have anything tangible to their name. And so if you want your best chance of surviving should, and we pray that it doesn't, should things get bad, should that third horseman of the apocalypse arrive, which is famine, should that occur, your best bet is to be in a well-connected community of people who are growing their own food. Chickens for eggs, ducks for eggs. If you want to get into slaughtering, a lot of people have a hard time. We're that detached from it. A lot of people have a hard time with the idea of slaughtering. But, fish ponds, look into that. I know a lot of people don't like the idea of living that farm life, but if we're talking about the future and you're worried about stuff like America, our economy collapsing, that's your best bet always. Always. AI will never own land. That I'm almost positive of. AI will take up land. They're already buying it for their stupid data centers. So buy it now because God already made all the land he's going to make and he's not making any more of it. And that's why land will always be valuable. Gold will outlast the dollar. Oil will outlast the dollar. But at some point, you're going to be starving. And if all you have is gold and silver, you can't eat it. Peace, love, and kindness says, I can't afford health care. 2 brain tumors. This is the only country I've ever known. It's expensive to move a family of 4 to a new country. Yeah, well, and the downside of free healthcare systems, just ask any average Canadian and they'll tell you that, not to be crass, I pray for your circumstances. Hopefully you had the brain tumors removed. But the truth of it is, you ask any Canadian about that and you'll die. You'll die from the tumors before you're even seen by a surgeon or a doctor. Because free healthcare has its perks, but it also has its downsides. And some of the downsides are everybody with a sniffle goes in for their free healthcare and makes an appointment so they can miss work and have a doctor's note because it's free. Why not? And that jams up the lines, and then all of the serious patients oftentimes wind up being neglected for quite a while. Unless it's, of course, an emergency, maybe you get to skip the line then. But a lot of countries have nightmare scenarios with that. I actually just watched this. There's this Facebook page of this British guy. He loves traveling in America. And he got hurt. He randomly got hurt here. Something really bad happened. Something bad happened with his leg or his back. He had to take an ambulance. And the Americans were joking. They went, "Oh, there goes your financial success. You're in debt now forever." So he was a little nervous. And it is true, by the way. The ambulance rides are grossly overpriced. Our healthcare is grossly overpriced. That is true. It's undeniably true. But he did put up a video after the fact and say, I've never been treated so quickly and efficiently as I have been in this American healthcare system. Of course, it helps. He's a wealthy Facebook influencer, so he had the money to cover this. So that's part of the problem Americans face. So he wasn't dealing with that. But he freely admitted that our healthcare system was way more efficient and quick, way faster. So there's downsides to both, in truth. But I wish you well. I wish you well, and you're in our prayers here in this chat if you're dealing with the brain tumor issues. Honestly, peace, love, and kindness. Listen, I don't know where everybody stands anymore nowadays. But if you're not a member of a church, and at this point too, it almost seems weird to say because it's like if you're not a member of a church, you have 2 brain tumors and you're struggling financially, it's going to look like usury, which of course we preach against on this channel for a lot of reasons. But this is another thing. I was just talking about communities, growing own food and being a part of a community and how America's gotten so far away from that. Boomer individual. Not to rant on boomers again. I did enough of that last night. I was watching the chat replay and Bold as a Lion was like, wow, to shit on your elders and say you want them stripped from Social Security, that's wild. So I was like, all right, I probably did go a little hard there yesterday, so I'm not going to go too hard, but I will just briefly reiterate, the boomer generation was psyoped into believing individualism was the best approach to life. As a man, you stand on your own 2 feet, you forego all your friendships of the past, you have a family, and that's your life. But it was never meant to be that way. And this is not a socialism advocacy. I don't believe socialism ever works in the long run, nor does communism or any perfect utopian society. But in a true capitalist society, we only benefit from a form of collectivism and a form of community. It's supposed to be this way. But what happened was during the boomer generation, they started buying more food at the grocery store and stopped growing their own. They gave up the farm life in exchange for the city life and in exchange for capital success and greed. And ultimately, they wound up also embracing sexual liberation, feminism, and other immoral ideals at the expense of the church. And so I will say this, and it's because as a child I actually lived through it. Good testimony for the church I grew up in. I'm not a part of it anymore, but I've been thinking about going back to it. My parents were financially struggling at one point. My father lost his job for an extended period of time and was having a hard time finding one. And that church that I grew up in, that my parents were a member of, they took turns sending food and dinners and lunches our way every single day until my father got back on his feet and found a job. And that's the benefit of community. And so I will say that to you, peace, love, and kindness. If you're struggling, there are options out there for you. Don't do it just to use them, though. But that is kind of the thing. That's kind of the downside of individualism, is when you find yourself in these tricky situations, you feel alone because you've been taught to be alone. And it's not supposed to actually be that way. But I wish you the best, man. God bless you, seriously, and I hope things look up for you. Just some food for thought, though, honestly, is remember that we are weaker alone, and that's part of the psyop. Individualism's part of the psyop. Blue Link says, I tried to leave and I was doing very well until I saw that I was getting taxed from the U.S. and yeah. I may have been able to deal with it, but alas, I want to be here to protect my family. I actually know somebody who left and went down to, or I used to know him. He left here and went down and moved to Jamaica to open up a restaurant. And then when he moved back here, the IRS said, excuse me, you've been gone for a few years. We got wind of a restaurant? Where's those taxes, U.S. citizen? And they basically said, well, we're going to put you on a nice payment plan because he didn't have the money. He was blindsided by it. So that does happen, and it is kind of gross. We are definitely overtaxed in this society. Pirate Media says Bondi and Patel are covering it up. Yeah, it's true. Peace says, my husband is my only income, raising 2 granddaughters. If I could own some land, I would do it. I need to get health care to get better, but I'd love to own a small piece of land. Well, I pray that window opens up for you someday, because I think that's something that's an aspiration more people should strive for. You talking about Benny Johnson? Yeah, Benny Johnson did turn on them, actually. He said, so Benny Johnson, who I consider to be, no offense to him, but he's kind of generic. He's got the Tucker Carlson vibes, and I'll listen to him because he does talk about the news a lot. So I'll still listen to him and whatnot, but he's kind of more generic and definitely somebody that strikes you as somebody who wants to remain moderate and not controversial in takes like this. But Benny Johnson did come out right out and say it honestly. He took his stance. He's been getting criticized for it, but he said he thinks that Bibi Netanyahu should be banned from the White House for false intelligence information and for how disastrous this war is turning out. So Benny Johnson W., we give him props. Lifeguard says it's an old question, but how does Israel control that regional population with so few citizens? Are they going to unalive 1 billion Muslims? This is part of the equation, actually, and it's even more uncomfortable of a truth for people. But yes, Israel historically, they claim that they are the most moral army in the world, but that's like Islam claiming to be the religion of peace. That's a psyop. And so what they do is they just bomb. They say, well, our intelligence is superior, right? Our intelligence is superior, and we're the most moral army of the world. That's being fed to you constantly by design, so that when you see houses blowing up, you then believe the next extension of that lie, which is, well, it's not actually fully a lie either, to be honest with you. It is kind of true. Well, Hezbollah, they use their civilian houses as makeshift military bases. So that's why we had to level that house. Then you'll watch the footage, and they're leveling entire city blocks, apartment buildings, and you realize they want you to not believe your lying eyes. They want you to think you're not seeing what you're seeing, but it is impossible to deny what's happening. And that would be part of the equation, yes. The other part of the equation is Israel, first of all, Israel in 2020 and 2021 had a net positive economy. They had a net positive economy, and they were still borrowing our money. They still want our money. But Israel actually is not suffering from the same issue with birth rates as we are, and they actually have at times had net positive economies. They're not wallowing in debt like America is. We're hitting $40 trillion in debt. Israel some years is in small amounts of debt, and they level it out. And so when their birth rate's not suffering as much, the conclusion is yes, they level entire city blocks, and they force all of their men to join the military. So that's another thing. It's mandatory military service, and they're going to increase in their population. So it is still a multi-decade event, I think. I don't think we're like 3 years away from this. I think it's like 20, 30, somewhere around there. This stuff's going to take time, but that's part of it. And controlling the land also, that's where, again, I think drone warfare, AI drones and stuff will play a part as well, by the way. A lot of data centers are being built in Israel. Do you think BRICS will be stronger after the Iran war, says Kathy Morgan? There's a chance. It depends on how this plays out, but there is actually a chance of that. And I've stated this before. There are so many idiot MAGA cheerleader channels out there. I'm conservative. I'm socially and fiscally conservative, and I voted for Trump a year and a half ago. And I will still tell you, if people are full-blown MAGA still, they're morons, and they're cultists. Because the MAGA cheerleader channel said, Trump's playing 5D chess, and you just can't see it. Now, I'm not a super great chess player, but I do, at points in time, have a 1,600 ELO score, so I am a better than average chess player, and I will beat most people in this chat. I'm out of practice, so actually maybe I have to relearn my Sicilian opening. But I understand strategy to some degree. So when they say Trump's playing 5D chess and this was about waging war with China, just like in Venezuela, no. I've already explained this. Our petrodollar is now jeopardized because of this. Saudi Arabia was already taking the yuan currency in exchange for oil last year, and now they're more likely to do that after this. So with our petrodollar at stake and with the yuan currency being pushed as the replacement for that, China could ultimately benefit way more because of this, depending on how it plays out. Same with Russia, and if Iran retains the control of this Strait of Hormuz, then yes, they actually benefit in the long term more. So yeah, there is a chance of that, unfortunately. G7 countries are aiming for only digital currency by 2030. Yep. Peace, love, and kindness. They were just found. I have a lot of appointments this month. I pray that they can deal with that. Hopefully, they found it very soon for you, and they can take care of that. Peace, love, and kindness. I don't even have the money for passports. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, talking about Toronto and Canada. Yeah, it's definitely based on severity. Princess Margaret Hospital is a hospital specializing in cancer on University Avenue. My father owned $2.5 million for healthcare when he died. Who paid that? We all did. In Canada, it would have cost the taxpayers about $30,000. I prefer Luigi insurance. I understand why people are radicalized on that. In USA, you are taxed on world income regardless of residence. Yep, it's true. Hey, Agus, how are you, man? Agus, I wound up reading the chat review last night, and I gotta say, I'm not completely against you anymore. I appreciate you. I appreciate you subscribing. You'll always be welcome here, so thank you for being here. Corporation, not a country. Yeah, you actually have some good takes, Agus. Okay. Insane revenge servitude as an agency. I'm focused on my health. I'm just thinking out loud, especially trying to raise 2 granddaughters. I feel you. Okay. I'm a constitutionalist. I did not vote. I don't believe in democracy in the first place. You believe in a constitutional republic, obviously. I agree with that. And I do obviously think, though, Agus, that we've lost our republic already. So whatever we are now, direct democracy, whatever. I agree with you initially, obviously. I agree with the concept of that, but I think it's a little late to save the republic. Once you lose a republic, you usually don't tend to get it back. It usually spirals down into either a democracy or an empire. All right. BRICS works on a basket of currencies and precious metals, including gold, silver, platinum, and palladium. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for me, though. I've covered everything I wanted to cover here tonight. Enjoy your guys' weekend. Don't take the black pill or the doomer pill. It takes courage to hope, but cowardice is a gutless act. So never be a coward. Always have hope. Appreciate all of you guys. I'll be here live tomorrow. On the weekends, I try to go live earlier in the afternoon. I try to aim truthfully for 3 p.m. live time on Saturday and Sunday. But don't be surprised if it winds up just being 9 p.m. anyway. Just be on the lookout. Be sure to subscribe right now to American Advocates if you haven't already. You can double tap the phone screen right now. It's not too late to like the stream. And if I missed one of your guys' chats and you wanted me to see it, this live will save as a permanent video on my channel. You can just find that and comment under it. I read every comment I get, and I reply to most of them if they're worth my time. And yeah, we'll leave it there. Have a great rest of your weekend. I'll see you here tomorrow for some way, shape, or form. Glory to America. God bless the USA. God bless all of you. And let's see how these peace deals in Pakistan turn out tomorrow. Take care, guys. Thanks to my moderators, Glenn, Lifeguard. Appreciate all of you guys being here. My new viewers, too. Appreciate all the chats. Come back tomorrow. Be on the lookout. Take care.